Hello and a very warm welcome to Eurosport's coverage of round 5 of the PPG Kart World Series from Rio in Brazil. It's the Rio 400. This is Ben Edwards with Robin Hurd, looking forward to a tremendous oval track race. Well, there's an absolutely glorious view of the scene here in Rio, but the cars are already out on the circuit, so let's concentrate on the race that we've got ahead here. Robin, it looks like we've got a dramatic race, and to make it even more dramatic is the fact that we've got two Brazilians on the front row of the grid. The crowd are wild before it's even started.
That Mauricio Gugelmin, who's on pole, his sponsor is the race sponsor. So besides that being great for the crowd, you can see here, there are also going to be all sorts of stories, I'm sure, in pit lane about favoritism on the pop-off valve or something like that.
Well, there you see the front row, Maurizio Gugelmin and Roberto Moreno. Remember, Moreno is standing in for Fittipaldi, Christian Fittipaldi, so great job from him. Second row, the two Team Rahal cars of Bobby Rahal and Brian Herter, the identical time in qualifying. Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti together on row 3 of the grid, and behind them Scott Pruitt and Greg Moore. Remember, Michael Andretti is leading the championship at the moment over Scott Pruitt by some 4 points, but also watch out for Greg Moore, who led here last year, the Canadian. Always a feisty racer. Alonso Jr. and Gilles de Ferran share row 5 of the grid, and both of them have been going reasonably well in qualifying. Unser a little bit disappointed to be back on the 5th row. Richie Hearn and Gualter Sales are on the 6th row, and that's a good performance again from two rookie drivers effectively. Gualter Sales, the young Brazilian, on home territory. Reigning champion Jimmy Vasser is back on row 7 alongside Parker Johnston, who again has been a little disappointing in qualifying here with his Honda power in the Team Green car. Patrick Carpentier, the Canadian, is on 15th place with the last year's race winner alongside him, Andre Ribeiro, really not showing the same sort of performance, nor is his teammate Adrian Fernandez back on row 9, and alongside him is Raul Boesel. Scotland's Dario Franchitti is next up. He's 19th on the grid, and he's got England's Mark Blundell alongside him, so it's an all British row 10 to the grid. Let's hope they can work their way up nearer the front of the order. Max Papis is on the 11th row with Hiro Matsushita, and behind them we've got two more rookies to the championship this year. Paul Jasper is in 23rd position, and Arndt Meyer, the German, is 24th on the grid, his first oval race. 25th on the grid is PJ Jones, and alongside him is Michel Jourdain, and at the back Juan Fangio and Alex Zanardi. No time recorded for Alex Zanardi. He had a misfire in yesterday's qualifying session that meant he wasn't able to actually set a time. In fact, they've swapped those last two grid positions around according to that graphic, to the information they gave us earlier, but it means that Alex Zanardi, Robin, is starting right at the back of the field. That really means we could see some fireworks.
Yeah, he's a tremendous driver. Very nearly had him driving for me in Formula 1 in the early 90s. Certainly in Italy, where he drove karts, they reckon he's the best thing they've seen in karts since Senna. He had a very unfortunate start to his Formula 1 career, and everybody wrote him off, I think very unfairly, but in the States he's been magnificent.
Zanardi then, starting from the back of the grid, but it's Maurizio Gugelmin who starts from pole position. And this is his first ever pole position in the American Race Series. A superb effort yesterday. Gugelmin and Moreno on the front row together. I just hope that these two Brazilian drivers can get cleanly off to the start on the green flag and get into the first corner safely. They're just beginning to line themselves up for position. The pace car is heading into the pits.
Yeah, Maurizio was always a very good qualifier. Not the same class as a race driver. It'll be interesting to see today.
Here we go then. We're about to get this race underway. 133 laps of the 1.8 mile oval coming up. Round 5 of the series about to get underway. Gugelmin keeps a nice... Oh, we've got a shot to the midfield already. Parker Johnston's involved. Several cars are involved. I think even Franchitti might be in that. Carpentier's there in the Alimax car. We've got a couple of cars coming into the pit lane, and there's drama before the race even gets... Yes, it is Dario Franchitti on the right of your picture. The silver and blue car, the Hogan racing car of Dario Franchitti, taken out in an accident as they came out of turn 4 to cross the start-finish line, and he's trying to get that car back to the pits so that perhaps they can get it repaired. But Robin, we've seen this sort of thing before, haven't we? Just what happens there? What goes wrong in that midfield?
It tends not to happen at the front, you notice. Because, I mean, the guys who win world championships are intelligent and they're mentally tough, and they don't make mistakes like that, well, not often. In the midfield, to be fair, you can't really see the start too clearly. Everybody's trying to get the jump on everybody else, and it goes wrong.
So Dario Franchitti comes back into the pit, and Gugelmin, having thought he was going to get away cleanly on the start of the race, has to do it all over again, and we're under yellow flags before the race has even started. Now let's have a little look in the background. Midway down, there was, well, somebody locked up, somebody hit somebody else, and Johnston was the one who shot across and hit Franchitti, but you couldn't really see what started it. It looks as though somebody accelerated and then somebody had to sort of jam the brakes on, and that's really what started it. A concertina effect there, yes, you can see. Yeah. So, well, that was already happening ahead of them, so they got tied up in the accident occurring just ahead. So disappointing for it to start like that, and obviously biggest disappointment in a way for people like Franchitti, who got caught out in that damaged car, and it looked as though they were pretty much minding their own business on the inside rank. It was the outside rank where all the problems occurred. So the race starting here in Brazil in dramatic fashion already. Rio 400, just in the latter stage of a replay there of the accident that's caused this race to be yellow flagged right at the start. Several cars involved, including Parker Johnston and Dario Franchitti. Johnston shot across from one side. Look at the half of the wing missing there on Andre Ribeiro's car. He was the race winner here last year, the Brazilian who scored a massively popular home victory, but there's been a lot of damage. Now, Robin, you've been very involved in engineering, in building Indy cars, in running Formula One cars, every side of the spectrum really in motor racing. But this championship really is one of the most competitive, one of the most closely fought, and I suppose incidents like we saw coming out of that corner, you just got to expect them sometimes.
Yes, I mean, somebody was trying to get the jump literally in midfield, because if you can get a fast start coming out of the corner, then you can pick up several places all the way down the straight. It's a pity. It is competitive. There are two superb series in the world, obviously mainly Formula One and this one.
You noticed there how with Ribeiro, he'd obviously come out of the pits. They'd done some work on his car. They'd sent him out of the pits and then sent him back in again. Why is that?
It's so that he doesn't lose a lap. He gets out just before the leading car comes around, goes around like crazy, and it gives him another minute, something like that, to work on the car. So with a bit of luck, he won't lose a lap and can start at the back of the field. That's
something that Dario Franchitti's been unable to do, because we saw a lot of damage to the left front there on his car. So unfortunately, I think the Scot is he's out of the car, pretty much out of the race. It is one thing that I have to say is quite good about this form of racing compared with Formula One, is the opportunity to get back out in the race. We often see them spin off, for example, but they always are given a helping hand. They don't never seem to want to stop them racing.
Sure, no, you're right. In that way, it's very American, very like NASCAR, where the aim is to make a good race. The perfectionists might say, well, that's not real racing, but it does produce exciting racing. There are arguments both ways.
So it looks as though the race is going to get restarted again in one lap's time. Just quickly, Robin, you were very involved in running Maurizio Gugelmin in his Formula One career. You actually introduced him into Grand Prix racing. How do you rate him as a driver?
He's a very good test driver. As I say, he's perhaps not too aggressive in the races, which means he doesn't overtake too often, and that hinders him. Very good responses. He makes sure, and I don't mean this in a cynical way, he makes sure he gets on very well with his sponsor with the help from his wife. Don't take that the wrong way. You'll never find Maurizio getting thrown out of the team he's in. Takes it very professionally.
So he is leading the pack around under the yellow flags at the moment, Maurizio Gugelmin, as the work continues in the pits to try and repair some of those cars that lost out on the first start. You're riding with Michael Andretti at the moment, and he's starting in 6th position on the grid for this one. Remember, the winner of the Homestead Oval Race, the championship leader as well, by some 4 points over Scott Pruitt. And the car looking very good. It's his teammate Roberto Moreno who qualified on the front row in the other Swift chassis. Superb performance. It's his best ever qualifying performance, of course, for Moreno. He's grasped this opportunity to race a top-line car with both hands, and he's making the most of it now. Coming around out of the final corner to restart the Rio 400. Maurizio Gugelmin across the line then and leads Roberto Moreno as we get some green flag racing underway here at Rio, and the battle is on for second position, and Bobby Rahal having a little look down the inside into turn one, but Moreno's able to close the door, and Brian Herter is trying to go around the outside of his team leader Bobby Rahal as they go through turn one. up through turn 2, which is a kink onto the back straight, building up to high speeds here. Then through turn 3, another kink left, taken flat out once again, but then it's hard on the brakes into turn 4, down a couple of gears, and then accelerate. And Rahal moves up into second. You see it from on board Roberto Moreno's car. There is Moreno, just ahead is the blue and white car of Bobby Rahal, and Rahal is looking in absolutely superb form here this weekend, qualifying in 3rd position, and now chasing after race leader Maurizio Gugelmin. Roberto Moreno in 3rd. He's coming under pressure from Paul Tracy. Tracy trying to squeeze. Oh, they've made contact, and Moreno is spun out. Herta spins as well, and Paul Tracy goes through. I think Herta spun. Yes, he's there on the inside in the Shell car. So Herta and Moreno both falling victim there as Paul Tracy tried to squeeze his way down the inside. We've got yellow flag racing once again. And Robin, what did you make of all that?
You have to say Tracy again. In Benetton, he came over and tested with Benetton, and they thought a lot of him as a driver, but he has too many incidents in races and spoils it for everybody else as well as himself.
I think he's actually survived this incident. Moreno was the one who got spun out there. Tracy tried to squeeze down the inside. Moreno seemed to be a little bit in two minds as to whether to leave him the room or not. Let's have another look at it here. You see, Tracy was actually quite a long way, but then, yeah, a very difficult one to call, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's Herta spinning.
Tracy got the break, and it's a shame for Moreno because he's had a very difficult career. He's a good guy and a good driver. Didn't deserve it.
No, he seems to be one of those guys a bit afflicted with the bad luck charm occasionally. As we see the field now behind the pace car. The pace car presumably out there somewhere at the moment, but they're slowed right down under yellows. Gugelmin, Rahal, superb charge from Bobby Rahal, the 3-time champion, but he's the old man now, isn't he, of this class of racing?
His car is working very well in the 2 corners. It was interesting watching Moreno. His car was understeering quite a lot, and the result was that Rahal and Herta were coming out onto the straight much quicker. So not only were they gaining in the corner, but they've got this enormous straight in which the exit speed was they were going to hold that advantage for the whole straight.
Another view of that incident, and Moreno, really, in some ways, he just should have been a bit more aggressive in the first place, shut the door, not given Tracy the opportunity. And once Tracy had a sniff, there was always the danger then that something was going to go wrong. It was a little bit of hesitation almost on Moreno's, but you can't blame him. He's got this opportunity. He's running up at the front. He's not really had the chance to race up against the likes of Paul Tracy in the past. It must, it must get the older nerves going a bit.
Sure, certainly, for instance, in Formula One, the drivers have a sort of pecking order for how they overtake. And if you saw anybody who saw Senna coming up to overtake, you'd get out of the way, because if you didn't, there'd be an accident, and there was no point. And Moreno, not having that experience, he doesn't know who you can shut off and who you got to miss. Obviously, you've got to miss Tracy.
You've got to miss Tracy. You don't give him a chance. Well, Gugelmin leading them around. Rahal in second, but Tracy seems to have survived that little incident. These cars are built pretty strongly, aren't they? They seem to be able to get through incidents like that without too many problems.
Yeah, fabulous. I mean, the safety work that's been done by CART and by the 4 manufacturers is great. It's very rare you see a really serious accident these days. 15 years ago it was dreadful.
There, the view from on board Moreno's car as he got the tap from behind as Paul Tracy went through up into 3rd place. And Moreno now with a lot of work to do. The car hopefully relatively undamaged as well as Tracy's car, but of course the spin dropped him well down the order. And now he's going to have to really apply himself to get somewhere in this race and get a good finishing position out of it. Gives us a chance to have a little bit more of a look at the circuit perhaps. It's unique in the terms of oval tracks. And as you saw once the race got underway, we've got 2 really very sharp corners. That's turn 1 and the last corner onto start-finish straight, turn 4, and 2 really kinks. They're not real serious corners, but those sharp corners, Robin, they take a lot of car setup to get the car just right.
Absolutely. This is a unique circuit because although it's an oval, it doesn't have the same characteristics of the normal oval. Basically because the 2 main corners at the end, those 2 kinks don't matter, they're both flat out, are much slower. They're about 3rd gear, about 100 miles an hour. And there you've got to get the mechanical side of the chassis working as well as the aerodynamics. And 180-degree 3rd gear corner is by far the most difficult corner to set a car up for. Because when you turn into the corner, that's okay, but it'll understeer. And then you'll think there, boy, I want to get the power on because the straight's coming up, and you put the power on, and if it's understeering, you just understeers more. So you have to back off and you lose speed. And if you can get the car so that it's neutral, so it doesn't understeer, you can come on the power much earlier, and not only do you gain the speed in the corner, but you hold that extra speed all the way down the following straight. And I was very impressed at the setup on Rahal's car, and it was interesting that he and Herta in the same team did identical times in qualifying, and I put your bottom dollar on that they've got the same setups on their car. It's very interesting to see how Rahal goes in the race.
It was fascinating, as you say, the fact that they set the same time in qualifying, absolutely down to the thousandths, but it was Bobby Rahal they put on the grid ahead of Brian Herta, and Brian reckoned that was down to executive privilege because Bobby's the team leader.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Now let's just take another look again at the view as Paul Tracy tried to dive down the inside of Roberto Moreno, and Brian Herta really just had to sort of jump on the brakes, didn't he, to avoid Paul Tracy. There wasn't an awful lot he could do. The good thing is that he got missed by everybody else, so Herta lives to fight on as his team leader Bobby Rahal there carries on. Just looking at some of the performances of the Brazilians, you can see Mauricio Gugelmin, his best career start. Roberto Moreno is also his best career start here at Rio de France, had a couple of wins in the past in the championship. Walter Salles has debuted so impressively this year. Andre Ribeiro's had 3 wins in the kart championship. Raul Boesel's been a regular on the scene, and the whole championship seems to be inundated now with the Brazilians. They really are making something of this series.
Yeah, it started off as a USA series, then we started to have several races in Canada, Toronto, Montreal and so on like that, Vancouver. And then that moved down to Brazil, and a lot of the Brazilian drivers who were coming over to Europe to do Formula 3 or 3000 in the Formula 1 started to stay in America. And really it's becoming an American series. Okay, they race in Australia, but I don't really see it going outside America. They don't want to, and there's, Formula 1 is the World Series.
Well, Mauricio Gugelmin has come from Formula 1 to the kart championship and certainly has performed well in his time that he's been here, but this performance, put it on pole position, really is something a little bit special. He's looking leaner and fitter this year, isn't he, Robin? He really looks very fired up, Gugelmin, to do the job properly.
Yeah, he's lost about 10 kilos. I mean, in Formula 1, they used to be weighed at the beginning of the season. He was always the heaviest, and this year he's certainly over the winter he's lost a lot of weight. He's got a very good team there. It's a good atmosphere in the team as well, a very pleasant group of people, and very capable, and a good package. The Reynard car is an excellent car. All round, at the moment, you have to say the best car.
It looks as though we're getting ready for the restart now as Mauricio Gugelmin begins to pick up the pace, but Bobby Rahal, oh, we've got Paul Tracy, spun it! Paul Tracy has spun it, oh no, it's going wrong again, yellow flags, cars all over the place, and would you believe it, Paul Tracy, one of the most experienced campaigners, spins it coming out of that final corner. Well, we've seen problems. It's coming back to the nature of this corner. It is a third gear corner. There's an awful lot of torque and power available at the rear wheels. The tyres have cooled down under that yellow flag. He's put his foot down, just lost the back end.
I think, yeah, you're right. They put the power into early, and that was it, and away he went. I mean, that might have been the cause of the first one. Someone just lost it with too much power too early, but I think probably it was someone trying to be too clever. The other thing is, normally on the ovals they run a spool, which is here we go.
Yeah, just having another look at it, you can see Andretti had to avoid him again. Andretti's been doing that a bit in the last few races. He keeps avoiding other people's accidents.
Absolutely. That takes him up to third place now.
That's right.
It's good.
You're talking about the diff, Robin,
yeah.
the actual the way they set the car up.
Use what's called a solid differential locker, which means the 2 rear wheels are connected together, and that gives stability. But here, being in a slower corner, they tend to give a lot of understeer, which is the one thing you don't want. But the behaviour of 1 or 2 of those cars looks as if they've actually got a spool in there, lock diff, rather than differential. But for instance, I would imagine Rahal, being essentially a road racer, did a lot of road racing over in Europe, will have a free differential probably in his car.
As you say, the nature of this track is more like a road circuit in terms of the actual corner setup. And indeed, Rick Mears has been quoted as saying that you can call this one a roval. It's a combination of road course and oval. I rather like that.
Yeah, it's lovely. Great, absolutely, it's spot on. It's an oval shape, but it's got the characteristics of a road course. The one thing that's interesting, everybody's waiting to see how the new American car is going to show on the road courses. We've seen it on the short ovals, and we've seen it on street circuits, and you'd say it didn't look too bad.
So Gugelmin leads from Rahal and Andretti after 10 laps. At 400, Maurizio Gugelmin leads them round on lap number 12. Bobby Rahal lies second. Michael Andretti is third. They're behind the pace car again, as we've had yet another yellow flag with an incident to Paul Tracy as he accelerated out of the final corner, spun it, and has rejoined the queue. He's rejoined the queue down in 10th position. So Tracy's still in the battle, still there, hasn't damaged the car. And let me tell you that further down the list, Roberto Moreno has rejoined the queue in 16th place after his initial spin. Also an impressive performance, which we hadn't really spotted in the only racing laps we have had, is, remember Alex Zanardi? He started at the back of the field, right at the very back, and he's actually got himself up into 14th position. And that's not a bad effort at all. Now, we've got to bear in mind he was second fastest on Friday. He also was third fastest this morning in the warm-up. And Alex Zanardi, who failed to set a time in qualifying because of a misfiring Honda engine, some sort of electrical problem, really is one to watch throughout the course of this race.
Yeah, I think you're right. The race is anybody's now. I mean, in football, we often say that somebody's got their name on the cup. It seems to be going their way. I mean, Tracy's got away with 2 incredible pieces of luck. You almost got to say it's got to be Tracy's race. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, you do wonder. Let's just, what are we having a look at here? Well, we can't quite decide at the moment, but Gugelmin still leads them round. It looks as though we're getting ready for the restart. Here we go. Gugelmin is going to try again to get away from Bobby Rahal, and let's hope they all get out of the last corner. There it is, turn 4. That's the one that's been causing some of the problem. Rahal got a bit twitchy and sideways coming out of it, but he survives, and we get green flag racing underway again as Gugelmin leads Rahal across the line. And side by side as they come down into turn 1, Rahal's trying to go for the outside move into turn 1. Can he squeeze ahead? Oh, he's done it. Beautiful driving from Bobby Rahal. He might be 44 years old, the oldest driver out there, but you wouldn't know it. That style of driving, absolutely brilliant from Bobby Rahal. He leads from Gugelmin in second. Michael Andretti looking very racy in third place. Fourth place for Scott Pruitt, who, remember, is second in the championship. But Robin, what about that move from Bobby Rahal?
Yeah, he's got his car working really well. He watched through these corners. See, Gugelmin is moving out. He's got understeer on them more than Andretti.
Well, Bobby Rahal seems to have got the setup just perfect on his car as he leads across the line. Gugelmin losing a few car lengths in the space of just 1 lap, as behind Michael Andretti, Scott Pruitt gets that bit closer. Greg Moore is running in 5th place, Gilles de Ferran is 6th, Al Unser Jr. in 7th, then Jimmy Vasser in 8th. Paul Tracy's already moved up 1 place, he's in 9th. Richie Hearn in 10th, Parker Johnston is 11th. And just to tell you, Zanardi still in 14th, Blundell is in 15th place. And remember, Dario Franchitti out of the race already, right at the start. He was taken out by someone else on the initial start of this race. So Mark Blundell upholds the British honours down in 15th position so far. And you can see just how close to that barrier they get as they come out of turn 4. Rahal leads then across the line. Gugelmin and Scott Pruitt is now the one who's looking the strongest of all. In 4th place, he's in the yellow and orange car there as they go into turn 1. Taken around about 100 miles an hour and then accelerating up 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear as they go along the back straight, building up to over 190 miles an hour along this back straight. But look at Scott Pruitt looking for a way past Michael Andretti, and this track really does lend itself to overtaking, but it's got to be done either into this one on the brakes or at the end of the one, at the end of the start-finish straight here as they come along towards turn 1. At the moment, though, Rahal opening up the advantage over Maurizio Gugelmin.
I think one thing that's going to be interesting is tyres, because the Goodyears obviously had a bit of an advantage on optimum performance, but through their first year, the last couple of years in Indy, the Firestones generally have tended to be more consistent, and Pruitt could get very good in the second half of the run as the consistency of the Firestone tyres comes to the fore, perhaps over the optimum, the greater optimum or greater ultimate performance of the Goodyears.
Yes, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Remember, up front at the moment, and Bobby Rahal is running on Goodyear tyres himself. Then the car in second place, Gugelmin, that's on Firestone tyres. Andretti on Goodyear, then Pruitt on Firestone. So we've got an even mix. Arndt Meyer is into the pits. He's the young German rookie having his first race on an oval track. And really, it's quite a baptism on a circuit like this, although, as we've already mentioned, not a classic oval. it still provides a big challenge. And look at Pruitt again, right up under the rear wing of Michael Andretti. Scott Pruitt pulls alongside Andretti. He's moving up. It looks as though he's going to take third place. He's done it. So Scott Pruitt into third position. Michael Andretti drops back to fourth. Greg Moore is in the blue and white car in fifth position. And behind him is Gilles de Ferran in sixth place. So keep your eyes on Scott Pruitt now. A very consistent racer indeed. And it looks this year as though all the packages come together. Look in the background. Greg Moore's going past Michael Andretti. You could see it from the onboard camera with Scott Pruitt. And Greg Moore now pops up into fourth. And Michael seems to be struggling to get this car to work.
Yeah, he's getting more and more understeer.
You can see that.
Yeah, you can.
The car running wide in the middle of the corner, and therefore the setup of the car not right. Now, how can he change that, Robin? Can he change that from in the car?
You can do a certain amount. You can adjust your anti-roll bars in the car. Probably the biggest thing he'll do at his pit stop, you'll probably see him put on a bit more, steepen the angle of the front wing to give more front downforce.
So it's not the end of the day for Michael Andretti?
No, far from it. I mean, all we need is another incident, and we'll be concertinaed up. I mean, in the end, the key with these races is stay inside of the leader till you come to the last couple of runs, and then go for it. Make sure you get your car gradually set up. It's very rare that you start off with the car working very well. And even if it is, as we saw with Rahal, he's not actually pulling out on Guzman now. And you wonder if his balance on his car is starting to go away.
It can change so quickly on these oval tracks. They can run just 20 laps or so, and suddenly the balance goes away, and you see somebody else coming up there that you just didn't expect. De Ferran running in sixth position at the moment. You ride on board with him at the moment. Let me tell you that Zanardi is up to 12th now, so he's made a little bit more progress. Mark Blundell still in 14th position, but Zanardi seems to sort of come to a bit of a stop now. He's up behind Walter Sales, who's in 11th place, but we're still very early in this race. 133 laps of the track, and we've done 21 laps so far, so an awfully long way to go. As Gilles de Ferran comes under pressure also from Al Unser Jr. There is the other Penske of Unser Jr. And don't forget that Paul Tracy, there is Paul Tracy behind Unser. Tracy also trying to make up lost ground after that spin coming out of turn 4. And now we've got the Swift, followed by the Reynard, followed by the two Penskes, as we switch back now to the clear track ahead of Bobby Rahal. But here goes Gilles de Ferran. He's going past Michael Andretti, so Gilles de Ferran moves up into 5th position, and I don't think it's going to be too long before we see both Al Unser Jr. and Paul Tracy also get past the Newman Haas Swift of Andretti. Across the line with Rahal still leading then. Just watch Al Unser Jr. line up Michael Andretti here.
Yeah, Al Unser Jr. He's a very, very good race driver, and he's going to, provided nothing goes wrong, he's going to be there at the end. And he's infuriating to work with as an engineer, because he never pushes it in testing. And he rightly says, you know, show me an engineer who risks his life in testing. But he works very hard through the weekend to get it set up for the race, and usually does a good job of that. And he's a very strong race driver. And of course, you know, the family have got such a tradition and steeped in that knowledge and experience. And here he is lining up Andretti, his old mate.
His old mate, yeah, another family man indeed. The Andretti versus Unser battle that's gone on over the last 20, 30 years, really, as it's just been one of the stories of American motorsport, really, and it's great to see it still continues, and that both of them have got competitive cars. We've got another accident. Richie Hearn has spun it now, coming out of turn 4. Richie Hearn in the red and white Lola there, who'd qualified pretty well, the youngster, doing a good job in that car, but it hasn't gone too well for him now as the yellow flag comes out once again. He has recovered it, and it doesn't look as though he's done any damage, but we're on to another yellow flag as Bobby Rahal slows the pace down and concentrates on behaving himself. It's the 4th caution flag already, and we're only a little way into the race. Lap number 23, Rahal ahead of Guterman, Pruitt in 3rd, Moore in 4th, De Ferran in 5th, Andretti in 6th place, Unser Jr. now in 7th. Then Paul Tracy in 8th, Jimmy Vasser 9th, Walter Sales in 10th, Alex Zanardi in 11th place, Raul Boesel is 12th, then Mark Blundell 13th, Roberto Moreno is in 14th, Michel Jourdain in 15th, ahead of he was ahead of Richie Hearn, but Richie Hearn's now dropped to the back, so Brian Herter has moved up to 16th place. 23 laps completed here at Rio on the 400, and it's Rahal who leads. welcome back. Are you looking at the points table? But interestingly, there's some drivers deciding to come into the pits now. As you see the leaders go around, Scott Pruitt has come into the pits. Now this is an interesting turnabout. He's in third position and deciding to come into the pits really quite early. Now this is a little bit of tactics perhaps going on here, Robin.
Yeah, one would expect them to do, I don't know, 36, 37 laps before they come into for their pit stop. But in fact, you can do 3 full runs and 1 slightly shorter run. And obviously what they're doing is doing their shorter run and taking on their full fuel load now, so that in fact they're not lost any time in the pit stop. And this could be to greatly their advantage later in the race.
So Bobby Rahal stays out, but Scott Pruitt has come in. 1 or 2 others have come in as well. We're just looking at some of the drivers out of the race already. Adrian Fernandez, Dario Franchitti and Patrick Carpentier, all out as a result of the incident at the start of the race, which involved several cars. 1 or 2 other cars, but that did actually manage to get back out again. There's Gualter Salas, he's been into the pits as well. So things all changing around a little bit. But for Bobby Rahal, he looks extremely comfortable up front at the moment.
Yeah, probably most of the people are running a pattern of like 36, 36, 36 and 25 laps. And you see there people taking the advantage of doing their 25-lap run first of all. It means they may lose out if there's a yellow later on, but they could have a big advantage. Could well work their advantage. And 25 laps was about the first time you could do it, come in and get away with 3 more stops.
So that could take quite a while to resolve itself. The other problem, of course, though, is they run under yellow flags as much as we're seeing today. They may not even need to make 3 stops.
Absolutely.
So Bobby Rahal running around. There's Paul Jasper into the pits, the Rookie of the Year in the Atlantic Championship last year, who's doing a good job. He's made the step up from the Atlantic Series up to the #1, the Premier Series in the United States and elsewhere, as we see here in Brazil. And it really is a big step, but he's doing all right, doing a competent job. But there's the man who's done more than a competent job over many, many years. Got a total of 24 career victories behind him. He's into his 16th year now of IndyCar competition. That's quite a record, but he's always been up there. 3 times the champion, don't forget.
I mean, one thing that amazed me, just thinking about it on the train earlier, was that I worked with Michael Andretti in his first 3 races in kart, and that was in '83. So this is his 15th year in Indy.
Not Michael, no, I was talking about Bobby there.
Yeah, I know you were, but I didn't say Michael. It struck me just how long some of these guys have been in it.
It is amazing.
Yeah, 15 years. Michael still seems like a young lad.
Well, of course, he started so young coming into the championship as part of the family tradition to come into the series so young. And a lot of his success happened very early. As you say, Michael's debut back in 1983 at Las Vegas. And his first victory coming a little while after that. His first win was back in 1986, one of the years that Bobby actually won the championship. But
yeah, so I remember that race in Las Vegas because Mario was racing. Mario was in his pod then, but Mario would come in for a pit stop and he'd be out of his car so quick and up to us. And how's Michael going? Michael did a very good job. He took to it like a duck to water. And of course he had that funny period. You know, undoubtedly he has the ability to be a top Formula 1 driver. He came over and had a very bad year, and just everything worked against it. Some of his own faults, some not of his own making. And I think that set him back confidence-wise for a long time. But he's lost a lot of weight, got himself a very nice new young girlfriend, and he's very happy. He's also very pro-American. By that I don't mean he's anti-European, but he's a very nationalist or loyal or whatever you say. Very, very pro-American, and therefore very happy to have an American car. It means a lot to him.
So Michael Andretti, yes, in the Swift chassis, the new car for this year. And what an impressive debut they had with that Swift chassis. It might not be working quite so well in the early stages of this race, as Andretti now runs in 5th place, but that win in Homestead, Robin, was quite something. I mean, you've built chassis over many years. You've built them for the customer market out here in America. You've then also built specialist cars for Formula 1. We'll come back to that in a moment, actually, because we're going to get the race underway again. So we'll come back to that, talk about the Swift chassis in a moment, because Bobby Rahal is now going on to start green flag racing once again as he pulls away immediately from Maurizio Gutermin, with Greg Moore there in 3rd place, but under pressure from Gilles de Ferran. Immediately de Ferran looking down the inside, but thinks better of it. If you're going to go alongside Greg Moore, you'd better be brave, because Greg Moore is extremely brave.
Yeah, we worked with him. He drove the Atlantic in our team, the Formula Atlantic in our team in the States in '95, and he is very, very good. And there's a Formula One driver in the future, and boy, is he brave. You look at him, he's a nice young guy, wears rimmed spectacles, but in a racing car, he's very fast and very brave, and a very tough racing driver. In many ways, like Jacques Villeneuve. And again, yet another Canadian driver, Tracy, Villeneuve, Carpentier.
And Greg Moore, there he is, just ahead of us in Gilles de Ferran's car as we ride at the moment. As Gilles de Ferran looks for the opportunity to move up into third position. That is the battle for third place, as Rahal continues to lead from Gugelmin. And then there's the blue and white of Moore. Then the other car, the Valvoline car of Gilles de Ferran, and then that little gap back, and it looks as though once has got past Andretti now. Alonso Jr. has moved up into fifth place, past Michael Andretti, and Paul Tracy is looking to do exactly the same thing as they come across start-finish to complete another lap. So where do you look next? Do you look at the battle between Moore and de Ferran, or do you look at the battle slightly further back between the black car of Andretti and Paul Tracy? It looked to me as though Paul Tracy was just pulling out, and I think Andretti is going to go another place down as the two Penske's make it past safely. And the Penske's now running in fifth and sixth places. You've got to keep an eye on those Penske cars. They were running so well in Nazareth just 2 weeks ago on the oval track. Also moving up there, looked like it could have been Zanardi. Zanardi's moved up to ninth place. Jimmy Vasser is running in eighth position. Let's just take another look. That could have been Vasser actually going past Andretti. Yes, that's Vasser who's gone past Andretti, but right behind Andretti now is Alex Zanardi. From the back of the field, Michael Andretti having another go at getting past Jimmy Vasser. He's not going to give up that easily, he says. And watch him down into turn one. They're going to be on the brakes, late on the brakes, and Andretti trying to come back down the inside of Jimmy Vasser, but it doesn't happen for him. The car doesn't want to turn in as quick as Jimmy Vasser's car, and so Andretti has to settle to be in eighth position, and he's now got Zanardi and Mark Blundell bearing down on him. Zanardi in ninth, and Mark Blundell in 10th position.
Yeah, Andretti lost so much in that corner. It looks like Swift have perhaps got a bit of work to do on road courses. Gives encouragement. The two cars, obviously, that look like being the class today are the Reynard, which we kind of expect. And it's good to see the Penske's coming back after a couple of, by their standards, relatively unsuccessful years.
Of course, as you say, it's more like a road course, this track, and they had some good results on the road courses last year. Remember, Little Al came very close to winning on one of the road courses last year until an engine failure put him out. The car seems to be working well in this sort of setup as well. As we just run through the order, Paul Jasper's back into the pits again. Obviously, he's got a recurrent problem with that car, and it doesn't look as though he's going to have a very successful afternoons here. Gilles de Ferran now coming under increasing pressure from Al Unser Jr. The Penske is bearing down on the Reynard. It's a Reynard Honda versus the Penske Mercedes. Mercedes so delighted to have a victory after a long lean spell. That Nazareth win, important win for Penske, but an important win for Mercedes-Benz as well.
One thing that's interesting, another thing that's interesting, because we've got mixes of tyres, we've got mixes of chassis, we've got mixes of engines, is the Honda. The fastest Honda, I think, was 10th on the grid, whereas they've been felt to be the engine they had last year. And it may be again a characteristic of this track, because you need not just peak power, you need power over a wide band of revs, so you can get acceleration, and it doesn't seem that the Honda has that.
Hiro Matsushita came into the pits just a moment ago in the number 24 car, and the Toyota-powered machine, well, maybe he's got some sort of engine problems. They have had quite a few engine troubles with the Toyota-powered cars in recent times. So Matsushita coming into the pits fairly early on. Lap number 35 out of 133. Bobby Rahal leads the race from Maurizio Gugelmin, with Greg Moore next up. He's being chased by Gilles de Ferran and Al Unser Jr. in 5th place. Then Paul Tracy 6th, Jimmy Vasser 7th, Alex Zanardi in 8th place, Mark Blundell in 9th, and Michael Andretti has dropped right back to 10th place now.
Normally we'd begin to expect to see the cars come in for their first refueling and all the activity in the pits, but there were so many laps under the yellow when you use maybe half the fuel that you normally do in a racing lap, that they're going to go way beyond the 36 or 40 laps, whatever it is they were going to do in the first run.
Watching on board from Gilles de Ferran, and you can see there's quite a lot of gear changing that goes on here. He's flat out through this kink, but watch him as he comes down a gear, down a gear, down a gear. Down 3 gears into that, the turn 4 corner. So taking that in 3rd gear, and then back up through the gears as he comes along start finish. Across the line then, Rahal, Guterman, Greg Moore, the top 3, and as you said, Robin, Rahal's really not pulling away now as Jasper makes yet another pit stop, and they're fiddling around at the back of the car, so whatever it is, it doesn't seem to be cured. Rahal, he had that initial advantage, but now it's not quite the same story.
No, there's 5 stone tyres behind him, and again, you know, they aren't very consistent through a run. But it'll be interesting, you know, maybe at the next pit stop when the Goodyear's gone Guzman's car, he'll be able to pull away again.
Max Papis is into the pits now. This may be a normal pit stop for Papis, just he's chimed it to come in on lap number 37, the Italian in the Reynard Toyota, who qualified quite well considering he has had fairly little experience of the oval tracks. 21st position for him. He was relatively happy with that. They didn't get an awful lot of chance to run new tyres on the car, so he was fairly happy. But in for his first pit stop, the car still running well. Rahal leads, Guterman second, Moore looking a little more aggressive in 3rd place. Greg Moore had a great run here last year. In fact, he was leading it right into the final stages of the race and only lost out at the end because of an electrical problem with 18 laps to go. Bitter disappointment for the Canadian last year here. And I just wonder, looking at him now, he's running so competitively in 3rd place. It could well be that Greg Moore is the one to watch in this race. Look at him just lining up Maurizio Guterman there. The blue and white car in 3rd place at the moment. He's had a bit of a disappointing season in the last 2 races. Had a good 2nd place at Surfers Paradise, 4th position in the Homestead race. But he needs to score some points, currently lying in 7th place in the championship.
Yeah, De Ferran's sort of working his way up very, very nicely there. The surface course is a little out. So, you know, provided there are not many more silly incidents, this could actually be an extremely good race, because you'd hate to pick any winner out of the first 6, 7 or 8. I think I've said that the Goodyears will be going on to Guzman's car for the pit stop. I think that occurred. There'll be a few contractual disputes. Thought he's running fast.
Well, it's not just the top 6 either, because don't forget Scott Pruitt made that early stop, and of the front runners, he was the main one to come in early. He's down in 12th place at the moment. But if things go his way, don't count him out at all. And remember, 2nd in the series at the moment.
I think you made a very good point there, actually, Ben. I think we should make a point of watching him, because watching Pruitt, not only see how he goes, but it'll show the instance of what actually happens when you take the advantage of doing refueling under a yellow.
Gilles de Ferran under pressure from Alonso Jr. Very similar to the situation that we had in Nazareth a couple of weeks ago. These two were racing hard for many, many laps, with Alonso eventually getting the advantage over Gilles de Ferran, and Alonso Jr. finishing in 3rd. Gilles de Ferran was 4th in Nazareth, so both putting it together some points. Of course, Alonso's had such a disappointing year up to then, but now he's just maybe beginning to really show his championship hopes, his championship contention, and running competitively at the moment in 5th position into the pits. One of the Toyota cars, that's PJ Jones in the number 98 car, and we're going to see a few more pit stops. I should think some of these leaders could do with a yellow now, and whenever you want a yellow flag, it just doesn't come, and they're going to have to stop under green flag racing conditions. By the looks of it, indeed, Alonso Jr. is the first of the front runners of this group to come into the pits. Alonso Jr. then makes his first pit stop, and the Penske crew amongst the best, of course. Lap number 41 just completed as Alonso Jr. comes in, and Jimmy Vasser there also going well. He's now moved up to 6th position. Alex Zanardi has also come into the pits, so an interesting decision for Zanardi to come in. That drops him down the order for the moment, but we're going to see an awful lot of stops coming up here. And indeed, Jimmy Vasser now decides to come in. So from 6th place, Bobby Rahal's in. The race leader, Bobby Rahal, comes into the pits. That means that Maurizio Guterman takes over the lead of this race. And a good clean stop wanted from the Rahal crew as they go to work. The fuel going on board, the methanol being fed in through that top filler. And Bobby Rahal gets away cleanly. Looks like a pretty good stop for Bobby Rahal as he comes down the pit lane. Speed limit 60 miles an hour and then gets on the power as he comes back out. Gugelmin now leads from Greg Moore. There's Jimmy Vasser comes out of the pits on the rev limiter. Again on the speed limiter as he comes down the pit lane, over the line, and he can accelerate cleanly away. And now come the rest of them. Gugelmin, Moore, De Ferran and Paul Tracy all into the pits. It's going to be fascinating to see if they come out in the same order as they go in. Crew goes to work. Tyre changed all round, fuel aboard. Gilles de Ferran stops in the Walker pit slightly further down, and then we watch to see the race back out. Michael Andretti is our race leader at the moment. He's not actually come into the pits through all this activity. And away goes Gilles de Ferran. But what about the others? Where are the others relatively? He's got past Tracy. Oh, and Gugelmin has come out last of the group. And a slow stop there by the Pac West team. And I think Gugelmin is going to be the main loser in that particular battle as they come out. Greg Moore's battling with Paul Tracy. But look ahead, Gilles de Ferran, I think, was the one who gained the most out of that. Great work from the Walker crew as he now battles with Bobby Rahal. So Rahal, who was leading the race, battling with Gilles de Ferran. Around they come. Fascinating stuff and real pressure on the pit crews in that precise moment.
Yeah, Derek Walker's brilliant. And he was Penske's team manager for so long, and he was team manager for 3 of the occasions we won the Indy 500. The best miles.
He knows his stuff, and Gilles de Ferran, they lost out actually in Long Beach through the pit stops. It looks like they've been practicing as Paul Tracy goes past Greg Moore in the battle of the Canadians. Paul Tracy makes a move. Let me tell you that Michael Andretti is actually leading at the moment with all these pit stops going on because he hasn't come in. Yes, he has. He's come into the pits. There he is, in fact, as I speak, and that means that Brian Herter goes into the lead because he's not yet made a stop, but Scott Pruitt has popped up into second position, and he has stopped, but out of sequence to everybody else. So Pruitt is definitely one to keep an eye on. And these other guys, well, they've sort of sorted themselves out a little bit now. The main gain for Gilles de Ferran, the main loss for Maurizio Gugelmin. And Michael Andretti, now he should come out somewhere in this group. This will be interesting. How far back will he be as he rejoins the track? Gilles de Ferran comes around. Where is Michael? Just coming out of the pits, and Brian Herter into the pits. So that's the last of the front runners to come into the pits. It means that Scott Pruitt now goes ahead. Roberto Moreno is shown as second, and I don't know whether he's actually stopped yet or not. We haven't seen him come into the pits yet. Look at that! Andretti being passed by both of the Penskes in one fell swoop. And then Greg Moore behind. Things have really changed around here as a result of these stops. And there is Gilles de Ferran, who, as I mentioned, gained a great deal out of that. And Brian Herter just coming out of the pit. So Pruitt is the leader, Moreno's second. Jourdain is in third at the moment because he hasn't stopped. Bozell, Johnston. De Ferran is actually in 10th position behind, we've got him down as behind Bobby Rahal at the moment. So Rahal's looking good, but Scott Pruitt, there he is the race leader. Roberto Moreno right with him at the moment. So this is interesting to see. Remember, Roberto Moreno spun out by Paul Tracy early on in the race, and now going very well indeed in the Swift. As into the pits comes Arndt Meyer, the German rookie, having a fairly good run at the moment. No major problems for him. But Scott Pruitt, race leader.
As you said, Ben, it's the Pruitt situation is interesting with that early pit stop, and we've seen the advantage. It's taken him into the lead. Moreno sadly came in too early to save a pit stop by his spin at the start, but still, all is not lost.
Yes, of course, Moreno in earlier on because of that slight problem that he had in the spin. So, but he's going to have to make a stop fairly soon, I would imagine. And several of the other guys who are up there on the ranking at the moment, people like Jourdain and Bozell and Johnston, all stopping rather out of sequence. But Pruitt is definitely in great shape here. Hey, guess what? We've got a yellow flag, another one. We had a whole bunch of them at the beginning of the race. We've had some clean racing without one for a while, but we've got a yellow flag period now because of an incident between Mark Blundell and Alex Zanardi. Mark got down the inside, and in fact Zanardi gave him room, but Mark just got it got a bit loose on him just going into the apex by the looks of it, and it made him run into Zanardi, and that caused him to spin. Hopefully he hasn't actually done any damage, but I'm sure that got the old heart fluttering. Remember that horrendous accident that he had here last year, Robin?
It's interesting, you know, Zanardi has a terrible time in Formula One. Blundell does a good job. Come over here. and you'd say, well, Zanardi's going to struggle and Blundell's going to eat it. And it's absolutely the other way around. Zanardi is magnificent, and Blundell really has had a very difficult time. And he's in the same team as Gugelmin, so can't say there's much wrong with the team or the car.
He's got a new engineer that he's been working with this year. It's been a little bit difficult, I think. I think the relationship between him and the engineer hasn't really quite settled and gelled as well as he would have liked, and I think that's been causing him a few problems to really get the car set up the way he would like. So just coming around, Scott Pruitt is our race leader. We've had a first round of pit stops, and it means that Pruitt, who stopped out of sequence, he stopped early, but it may well work for him later in the race, and he has now got the lead of this race. Effectively then, we've got a great gaggle of cars that are really not in the game. So it's really Bobby Rahal way back in 8th position, who's, if you like, the next favourite after Pruitt. Rahal is ahead of that next group. He's 8th, De Ferran is 9th, Tracy is 10th, Herta is 11th, so they did a good stop for Herta. 12th is Unser, 13th Andretti, then 14th is Greg Moore, 15th Jimmy Vasser, and 16th, way down to 16th now, and really, more importantly, right at the back of that gaggle of cars is Gugelmin. He's lost a lot of time in the pit stop and the next couple of laps. Zanardi 17th, then Blundell was 18th, but he may have dropped back a bit from there, as we now see another bunch of pit stops. That's Pruitt and the other bunch of cars that were all slightly out of sequence. Now, I'm surprised that Pruitt's coming in this early, because it's really only another 25 laps that he's done.
Actually, you know, he might just make it, because they did 41 laps on their first run. There's 52 there, so there's 81 more laps to go. He can just do it on one more stop after this. But it's really, really tight.
So
it could be brilliant.
It could be. It could be quite a gamble from the Brahma Sports team. Pat Patrick, who runs that team, he knows a thing or two, doesn't he, Robin?
Yeah, he's the godfather of my daughter, so I got to be say nice things about him. Yeah, he could. Well, to be fair, they worked it out and they got the break with that yellow that we're having now. But he could be very lucky and mean that he's made his 2 refueling stops on the yellow, which means in effect he loses no time, loses his position in the field, therefore he's got to overtake them. But over the course of the race, it should, everything else being equal, he should win.
Okay, well, it depends on his pace as well. If he can run that front-running pace when we go green again, that's a very important point. But those cars making a stop, it means that Rahal has come back up to 3rd. Sales comes into the pits now as well. So that really means that everybody has come into the pits. It means that Rahal is back in front now of that group. Rahal, De Ferran, and Tracy is the group. So really, that's effectively our top 3 at the moment. Rahal, De Ferran, and Tracy, and indeed the computer changes the positions around as they come through, and Rahal is now given as race leader. So Herta in 4th place, the 2 Team Rahal cars going well. Robin, having run cars in the past yourself and looked after team efforts, how do you imagine that Bobby manages to combine running the race team with actually driving the car?
I think with difficulty is always the sort of, you know, the glib answer, and it is difficult. The most difficult thing actually is getting sponsorship, and it's the most time-consuming and nerve-wracking of the lot. But you know, people do it, and he does it, and does it well. But I'm sure he would have been more successful over the past few years had he only been driving. I think a lot of drivers are more used to doing it in the past. You think of McLarens and Bradmans and so on like that. They get so fed up of having to work for people who they thought were pretty second-rate. They could do a better job themselves and went out and built their own cars. Now you can buy a good car, you can buy a Reynard, which is better than anything else. Well, the Penske seems to be sneaking up on us as a Swift. And you can be competitive, so provided you can get the money and drive the car, you can employ the good people to run the team and do it. But I still think you're better off in terms of winning races if you concentrate on the racing.
Well, Bobby seems to be putting it all together pretty well here at the moment, leading this race. So far, it'd be great to see him win, wouldn't it? It's been a long, long time since Bobby Rahal had a win. It's a long streak of not having one. In fact, Nazareth was his last race victory, the racetrack that we were at last time, and it was the 1992 season when he had his last victory. 4 wins that year. That was when he was champion for the 3rd time, beating Michael Andretti by just 4 points in the championship. Very close battle that was, and great to see, of course. And it was the following year that Nigel Mansell came over, but Bobby really wasn't in quite such a competitive proposition that following year and couldn't really give Nigel Mansell a particular run for his money in the 93 season.
The thing about, you know, this rash of yellows, it makes Pruitt's situation even stronger because he came in. I mean, had it been green all the way to the end, no more yellows, I'd say that it's to his advantage now because they're only using half the fuel for that they would do on a green. And he was, I think, right on the limit of getting away with one more stop. Now these yellows and the reduced fuel consumption of his car means it's making his position safer and safer.
Well, it'll all come out in the wash, as they say. Bobby Rahal is the race leader, though, at the moment, as we go green flag racing once again. De Ferran chases in second place. The restart on lap number 55 out of 133. Paul Tracy in third position. Brian Herter coming under pressure from Al Unser Jr. It's Unser Jr. looking at the inside, but deciding against it, as Michael Andretti was also having a bit of battle just behind him. Bobby Rahal. Now, are we going to see him pull away, as we saw in the first stint when he got past Maurizio Guterman? Gil de Ferran is now the Brazilian chasing him, with Mercedes power versus Honda power up front. Third place, we've got another Mercedes powered car, and then Brian Herter with Ford Cosworth power. In fact, Bobby Rahal with Ford, sorry, I'm mixing my engines there. Of course, he changed to Ford at the beginning of this year. Absolutely delighted with the performance his Cosworth engine has been giving him this year, and really making the switch because he felt that Cosworth were prepared to give him some, you know, really look after him properly, give him some good treatment. And that seems to be showing well here, doesn't it? The Ford engine's absolutely superb at the moment.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, people were starting to say, well, you know, Cosworth, you know, they're losing it. They're not really getting over it. We've got another yellow.
Another yellow. Another, oh dear.
Wow,
and that's Maurizio. That's Maurizio Guterman, who's wiped out the left-hand side of his car. And that looks as though he's hit the barrier very hard indeed. Now, we've got some new barriers here at the Rio track being tried for the first time. They're a special tyre barrier. Moreno's involved. Moreno there as well. Now, I don't know whether the two of them clashed. They were running, let's see, were they running fairly close? They were running together on track at the time, and it looks as though the two Brazilians who started on the front row of the grid together may well have made contact as we've reached just over 1/3 distance here. Great disappointment for the crowd as well, because two of the Brazilian favourites, Moreno was actually born here in Rio, although he's spent a lot of his life in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, but still he's regarded as one of Rio's own. So he's been very popular with the crowd this weekend. They were absolutely mad when he got onto the front row of the grid. Guterman as well, of course, and now, Robin, two Brazilians out.
Yeah, well, firstly, of course, Maurizio is his sponsor. Hollywood is also the race sponsor. So the race sponsors were between.
Let's see if we can see what happened here. Well, one was down the inside. Oh, and this is further. Oh, it's further back actually. I was actually looking in the wrong place. He hit that tyre barrier, and you have to say that that could have saved him from a very big headache, if nothing else, because that tyre barrier really absorbed some energy there, didn't it?
Yeah, Maurizio got out of that fairly comfortably. You know, literally got out of the car. But that is a shame. I'd like to see it again, because Maurizio is very, very prudent during a race. I was saying at the start, he's not one to make rash overtaking manoeuvres.
On board with Moreno. Now let's see if we can see what happens here. Where is Guterman? Moreno catching up to another car. Did he move out without seeing that Guterman was alongside? Oh no, I see he's passing Guterman. So Moreno going for the pass on Guterman down the inside. Oh! Moreno lost it under braking himself, I think.
Yeah, no, Maurizio, yeah.
Guterman lost it under braking, coming into the corner and swiped Moreno. That's unusual to see, because Moreno was going down the inside and Maurizio just seemed to lose it, unless something locked up at the back of the car when he changed out. Something odd there, because the car just swapped ends on him coming into the corner.
It may have been that he saw Moreno on his left and couldn't take the good line, because at the moment you go offline, certainly halfway through the race, there's no grip, and he had to do his braking and his turn in, heavy braking, very heavy braking at that stage, and the turn in on the steep part of the track, and that's why he spun. In this case, I don't think he'll be a happy bunny when he speaks to his teammate.
No, well, I don't think he will, but it's really an amazing situation. I wish we could see that again, actually. We need to see that from the head-on camera, really, to see exactly what happened coming into turn one there. Roberto Moreno, he's having a busy afternoon, isn't he? He was spun out by Paul Tracy earlier on in that incident early in the race, or was he spun out by Paul? Was just involved in the incident with Paul anyway, and now involved in another incident with Maurizio Guterman, the former race leader, the pole position sitter. It looks as though they're going to put another rear wing on the car, and the Swift guys are really having to work pretty hard this afternoon.
Yeah, but shame for the crowd, I must say, two guys, because Moreno's going to have a difficult job to get up from here.
They've still got Gilles de Ferran. He's up there in second position, so Brazilian interest is not all gone yet. So there he is in second place. Bobby Rahal leading them round. Tracy in third place. Herta is fourth. Alonso Jr. fifth. Michael Andretti sixth. Greg Moore seventh. Jimmy Vasser is eighth. Alex Zanardi ninth. Mark Blundell is still there. There it is again in 10th place. And again, I was looking at the wrong place, but it was basically Gugelmin lost it. He lost it on the outside, hit the tyre barrier. This tyre barrier is interesting, Robin, isn't it? Because instead of just having concrete walls, as we normally have around the outside of an oval, this weekend they're trying a new system.
Of course, last year Mark Blundell had his terrible accident when the disc bell failed and the braking. I have to say it wasn't a standard Reynard piece, wasn't their fault. And turfed into the wall, and that must have been a heck of a shock, and I'm sure it's created a lot of difficulties for him in his career in kart. Maybe has slowed him down in getting up to the front.
This tyre barrier, just talking about it, they're actually, the tyres are all bolted together, but there's the steel wires holding them in place as well to give it more rigidity, but also it gives that give. It obviously is very different to hitting a concrete wall, but it's been carefully designed so it doesn't just destroy, because that's the problem with some tyre walls. You hit the tyre wall, the tyres go all over the place, but there's also across the face of the tyres is a sort of conveyor belt material which actually binds it all together, and as well as absorbing the energy, hopefully it all stays intact as well.
Yes, it obviously worked very well, because Maurizio got out of the car fairly well, as calm as I think he could be. I think Moreno put him in a position where the situation was unavoidable, which is a shame. And it's unfortunately his teammate Blundell going out in effect with a spin as well. It's been a difficult day for the Pac West.
Yes, it has. Well, although Mark's not actually out of it, he's still in 10th place, so you never know if he can stay in there. There he is, just coming into picture at the back of that group. You can see him behind the two Jeep Ganassi cars. Mark's got the red and blue car, running in 10th place. Vasser 8th, Zanardi 9th, and Blundell in 10th place so far. So let's hope that it all holds together. Still a long way to go in this race, which has seen a remarkable number of incidents so far, all sorts of ups and downs and problems, as Bobby Rahal leads. Let's look again. You can launch on the outside. Suddenly, Gugelmin car just spears into Moreno's car. And poor old Roberto was thinking, hey, what happened there? I was just going to turn into the corner, and suddenly I get attacked by my fellow Brazilian. Very odd situation, but
I think it probably was that he'd seen Moreno, and therefore he'd had to go onto the boondocks, onto the rubble and tire debris and stuff like that, and he just didn't have the grip, and the back end came out, and that was it. And again, he was being very prudent. A lot of other drivers just turned down on Moreno and left it to Moreno to get out of the way.
Moreno's back out again. Look, they've made repairs, and he's on circuit again. As we can see, the positions, Rahal leads from de Ferran and Tracy. Herta in 4th, Unser 5th, Andretti in 6th place. And let me tell you, Greg Moore then in 7th, Vasser in 8th, Zanardi in 9th, there you see it. Blundell in 10th place, Scott Pruitt in 11th place, but still in good shape, different pit stops. And Michel Jourdain in 12th position. Then Bazell 13th, Hearn, Salis, Fangio, Johnston, PJ Jones, Max Papis in 19th. Moreno's dropped down to 20th. And Gugelmin is out with a very damaged car. They're the other cars that are out. Poor old Dario Franchitti didn't even have a chance at the start of the race, taken out by one or two other cars at the start, coming out of turn number 4 onto the start-finish straight. Even before the race got underway, he was heading into the pits with a very deranged-looking front suspension. So it looks as though we're getting ready towards restart time. Somebody coming in the background, looked like Parker Johnston coming in to make a pit stop. But it's not going to be long now until we get this race underway again, as Bobby Rahal has spent most of his time this afternoon, as has everybody else, running at quarter revs, tooling round behind the pace car.
If you look at the leaderboard, you see Rahal, de Ferran, Tracy. Yeah, there it is again.
Yeah, just again, he was just on the outside. Suddenly it swapped ends. So
no grip there. Can't have it.
So Bobby Rahal leads them round on lap 62 from de Ferran and Tracy, with Brian Herta in 4th position. There is Roberto Moreno waving people past, and it may be that he's been told to get to the back of the line, I would think.
Yeah. But if you look at Rahal, De Ferrer and Tracy Herta, in the nicest possible way, you'd say, well, they do tend to have incidents. And Unser Jr. is a strong driver. And of course, we've got Pruitt, maybe with tactical advantage.
Okay, so it looks as though we're going racing again. Rahal has stolen the advantage here. There's a canny driver for you. He's left Gilles de Ferran absolutely sitting on the back straight. And Gilles now finds himself a good chunk of time away from Bobby Rahal at the restart. Third place for Tracy, fourth place for Brian Herta. As you say, oh, look at that, Andretti was a bit slow, and the two Chip Ganassi cars were looking very good indeed coming down into turn one there. I don't know who made what ground. We'll have another look as they come round onto the back straight. But Rahal it is who got away very cleanly. Yeah,
Michael was painfully slow on that straight. Now, whether he was just caught unawares or whether there's something wrong with his engine, whether he was slow out of the corner, I don't know. We'll see next time.
You see as they come over the line, Rahal, Ron De Ferran, Tracy, Herta, Unser. And then the gap back to Greg Moore. And then it was behind Moore that we saw, well, yes, you see both of the target cars have got past Michael Andretti now. So that means that Moore is 6th, Vassar 7th, Zanardi 8th, and Andretti's dropped right back there, Robin. He's down to 11th position.
He's got a problem.
So
clearly.
Problems for the championship leader. Don't forget, leading the series coming into this one, so it's a fairly crucial moment as Andretti drops down the field. It looks as though he's in trouble this afternoon. Mark Blundell's right behind him now. Blundell running in 12th place as the rest of them continue round. Rahal just opening up that advantage on the restart, now maintaining it pretty much as it was when they took the green flag. Gilles de Ferran can maintain the pace, but he can't go any quicker as yet. And then Tracy sits there, trying to stay out of trouble for a while. Here is De Ferran. Let's just ride on board with him for a moment. Watch the car, watch the hands on the steering. Accelerating, 4th gear, 5th gear, up through the kink, onto the back straight as Michael Andretti heads into the pit lane. As we thought, some sort of problem for Andretti. Now, let's see where they're going to work. Looks as though the engine cover is about to be taken off. And this looks fairly serious. Gilles de Ferran there in 2nd place. Oh, Moore very close to the wall. Greg Moore coming out of turn 4, the blue and white car in the background, as close as anybody to that wall.
Oh, he has got bravery.
Bravery, yeah. Thought you were going to say something else,
yeah,
then, Robin?
I was.
Michael Andretti is in big trouble, though. Engine cover off the car, and that looks as though his race is run. Now, that is disappointing, isn't it? Because they've had such a good, reliable run of races up to this point in the championship, winning the opening race. He was 3rd in the Surfers Paradise, the 2nd event, and had a few problems in Long Beach with the tyre failures, which put him out of the race, but that was a bit of a one-off. This is really the first mechanical retirement that we've seen from the Swift chassis.
Yes. We've got a Goodyear procession. In fact, Moore's the first Firestone guy, I think. But if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I'd put my money on Little Al or Pruitt, which probably puts the kibosh on those two.
Well, as you say, the Goodyear tired cars running well at the moment. It's interesting to see that, because the Firestone tired cars, as you said earlier, have usually been competitive, at least in the early part of the stint, and then dropped away. But right at the moment, the Goodyear seems to have the edge, and they really have responded magnificently to the challenge from Firestone. Last year was a bit of a Firestone benefit at the early part of the year. Having said that, Goodyear did come on strong towards the latter part of the year, and now it seems to be very, very even.
Absolutely, it's a little bit. I mean, of course, we're seeing the same in Formula 1 with Bridgestone, who are the same company as Firestone, taking on Goodyear in Formula 1. And Goodyear have got so much knowledge and so much experience, but you know, they've had it their own way in both series for so long. They were very much a sleeping giant and had to respond. And they did. They have them.
Good view of Gilles de Ferran on that back straight, up to 190 mile an hour, just over, building up, and then hard on the brakes into this one as they come around turn 4 to complete another lap. 68 laps completed as they cross the line this time, and Bobby Rahal still maintains the advantage. We're over half distance now as De Ferran continues in 2nd place. Tracy in 3rd position. Herta is in 4th position. Then Alonso Jr. in 5th. Greg Moore in 6th, Jimmy Vasser 7th, Alex Zanardi in 8th, Scott Pruitt in 9th place, Raul Boesel 10th, Michel Jourdain 11th, Mark Blundell is 12th, then Vuelta Salis 13th, Richie Hearn 14th, Juan Fangio 15th, ahead of Parker Johnston, PJ Jones, and then Max Papis, who's 1 lap down, and Roberto Moreno, who's shown as 19th, and he is in fact 3 laps down now. Michael Andretti has joined our list of retirements, however, as you can see, 68 laps completed. And we go on to lap number 69. Rahal and De Ferran. The gap remains fairly constant at the moment between these two. And Gilles de Ferran, who had a good run here at Rio race last year. In fact, he led it for a little while. Led it for around 20 laps at one stage last year, but he ran out of fuel, which seemed a bit careless. There's Michael Andretti just still sitting in the pits. I don't quite know why. No, he is getting out. I wonder why he was still sitting in the car, because there didn't seem to be much prospect of him coming out and scoring any points. But he has retired, so Michael Andretti, the first of the real front runners, if you like, to go out of the race. And that's a disappointment for the Swift team. They're having a tough day today with Roberto Moreno's troubles as well. We were talking about the Swift chassis a little bit earlier, Robin, and about the impressive debut that they made in Homestead. You've, as I say, built Indy cars in the past. It's not easy, is it, for a company to come in fresh and actually come out and win the first race?
No, it's funny, it almost seems a tradition that you do well in your first race. I mean, our first race happened to be Indy. We were fastest qualifier. Reynards came out, and they won their first race. Swift came out, and they did very well straight off. The Swift, I think, we could see a sort of sea change here, because when we came over...
Oh, just hang on, let's hear from Michael for a moment, Robin.
Prognosis with the engine problem. Something internally in the engine, but
Well, we were hearing from Michael, and sadly, we're not hearing from Michael, so some sort of engine problem we gathered, but that's a pity to lose him there, and lose him from the race. But yes, just coming back to what you were saying about the Swift chassis.
Yeah, firstly, there's a very big British influence, but secondly, they've got a lot of money behind them. They've got a very good wind tunnel. They've got a good designer, and clearly the car's good. When we came over in the early days, you know, we were a sort of strange group of limeys coming over to take on American racing, race at Indy, and we were very affectionately received. They're great. I think people have got a little tired of this now. It's been going on for, what, 12, 13 years. And they'd love to see, they've been tired of seeing British car win year after year after year. Because the Penske's built down in Poland, Dorset, fellas. Great operation down there. And I think if the Swift shows up well, I can see a lot of teams running Swifts, just for patriotic reasons. And of course, Swift do have Carl Haas as a salesman, who is second only to Rick Dorn as the salesman of the year. I'd love to be a fly on the wall on a sales discussion between Carl Haas and Rick Dorn.
Well, of course, it is a customer market, isn't it? I mean, you know, the manufacturers are there to build and sell cars. That's what you did with March. That's what Reynards do. That's what they've been so successful doing. And although there's only the 2 Swifts out there at the moment, as you say, with the competitiveness of the car and that desire to race an American chassis, I just wonder how many Swifts we will actually see on the grid next season.
I think it'll set back Swift on their performance. I mean, Reynards are doing a tremendous job. All the way. I mean, the car is the best, I'm sure, all the way around. The designer, Mark Moster, is a class designer. I mean, he should be designing a top, you know, not just a Formula 1 car, but for one of the top 4 teams. You know, why he is, I don't know. I mean, Adrian obviously pays him very well. He's a class guy as well as a class engineer. But, you know, they've got that covered. They've got not only a good car, they've got it with very good teams, and they've got a very good organisation backing it up. And Swift have got to do that, and that will take effort away from what's put into their top 2 teams in the Carl Haas and the Newman Haas team. They'll suffer.
Well, let's turn our attention back to what's actually happening on track for the moment, because Bobby Rahal is continuing to lead very comfortably. Lap number 76 we're on now. Gilles de Ferran is in second place, Paul Tracy third. We've been watching that battle as we've been talking, but it really hasn't changed much. De Ferran seems to be holding Tracy off reasonably comfortably at the moment. Herta then in 4th place, Unser in 5th. It's remarkably settled at the moment. seems to me a bit of the prelude, perhaps, to all sorts of things going on later on.
Yeah, it's the you get these moments, and you just wait for all hell to break loose. It's the sort of calm before the storm, whatever cliche you want to do. I mean, we'll start to see the entertainment on the second bunch of pit stops, which are going to be probably 80 or slightly beyond 80. So we're only, what, 5, 6, 7, 8 laps off that. So in about 5 minutes, we'll start to get active again.
Yes.
There'll be a bit of chaos in the pits for a start.
And the chaos in the pits could cause chaos out on the track as well. Yeah. Let's just ride with Jimmy Vasser, another great view of this circuit. We're on the back straight, up into 6th gear as he goes along the back straight into the kink. That's a really quick left-hand kink, but then it's hard on the brakes, down those gears. This is where the car balance, the car setup is so important, as we were talking earlier in the race. Interesting to see just how even-handed these two Target Ganassi cars are, isn't it? Jimmy Vasser, the reigning champion, Alex Zanardi, as you were saying, Robin, a guy that you chased as a Formula 1 driver, but the two of them remarkably well matched in this race.
Yes, I'm sure they've got similar setups on, and they're two very good drivers. Is it 25 races that Vasser's finished on the trot? Incredible. I don't have anything like it before in any form of racing.
It's an amazing reliability record, and you have to put some of that down to the driver, a lot of it down to the driver, because obviously he doesn't make many silly mistakes. We'll probably put the curse on him now, having said that, but Jimmy has been remarkably consistent. He stays out of trouble, and of course a little bit criticised for that way of winning the championship last year, but it's all about winning championships, isn't it? So you can't take it away from him. Scott Pruitt still running well. He's in 9th place, and one to watch, no doubt about that, because of the pit stop strategy that he's on, this slightly different strategy. 10th place, 9th place at the moment, he's behind Zanardi. Rahal still leads. De Ferran in 2nd place, and then Tracy, Herta, Unser in 5th. As you can see, Greg Moore still in 6th place, and then Vasser, Zanardi, Pruitt. Bozell is in 10th place, Blundell 11th, Jourdain in 12th. Then Sales, Johnston, Hearn, Jones, Papis, Moreno. But Moreno to some 4 laps down now as you ride on board the race-leading car of Bobby Rahal. And then switch to the battle for 2nd place. Still some 55 laps to go here at Rio. And everything very remarkably settled at the moment. We haven't really seen much in the way of overtaking for a few laps. Still this battle between Gilles de Ferran and Paul Tracy. This is the battle for 2nd place, but Paul Tracy just doesn't seem to be able to get any closer than this. About a car length away from the back of de Ferran's car, and then he just can't seem to get any closer. It looks as though the Honda has the straight line speed, doesn't it? Or whether it's the aerodynamic setup, or whether it's the power, difficult to tell, but he just stretches it a bit at the end of the straights, doesn't he?
Yep.
So de Ferran, and into the pits there, Alex Zanardi now, as you said, Robin, just about on cue. Next round of pit stops taking place. Alex Zanardi there. Fairly clean, gets the new set of tyres on and back out.
It's interesting because he's now going out in the same, has one more pit stop to make, as does Pruitt, and we'll see how Pruitt is in relation to him, but all we need is another yellow.
Yeah, another yellow flag and it all changes around again. 1 or 2 others coming into the pits as well. As Alonso Jr. in fact is next into the pits, that drops him down the order. But another very important stop, and they're all going to build up towards the charge. There's still some way to go in this race.
Yeah, the top guys are averaging about 40 laps on their runs, and that includes quite a few yellows. So what are we going to see? 40, 80, 120, and then there's 13 laps of the last run. Except for Pruitt, who'll be about 30 laps on his 25, 30 laps on his last run.
So it's all going to be settled at the checker flag. Jimmy Vasser comes into the pits as well, but Bobby Rahal, the race leader, still hasn't come into the pits, nor has Gilles de Ferran, running there in 2nd place. There's Vasser into the Chip Ganassi crew. Had a little bit of an incident in the Surface Paradise race, and one of his wheels got left behind. It was more of a problem for Gugelmin than it was for Jimmy Vasser. And looks as though things are okay. A little bit long time getting all that fuel in, but eventually they get all the fuel in, and Jimmy Vasser is able to rejoin the fray. Winner of 4 races last year to take the championship, but it doesn't look as though he's going to win this afternoon. Gilles de Ferran comes in, slows it down to the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit as he comes down the pit lane. And this, of course, a vital stop. They made a brilliant stop last time, remember, Robin?
Yeah.
Do you reckon they can do the same this time?
They obviously can do it. Whether they will, we'll see it happening.
Interesting to see how slight difference on the different chassis. Some of the refueling rigs going in more at the side, some more over the top.
Sure.
Just the different design of the fuel tanks and the way the fuel goes in. Gilles de Ferran gets out, looks like a clean stop, but Herta has got out ahead of him, I think. Yeah. Brian Herta, slightly quicker stop from the team Rahal car of Brian Herta. So Gilles de Ferran now has got some extra work to do to get past that car. And as we've seen, overtaking is proving difficult. Race leader into the pits. Here's an important one. Now they should be pretty buoyed up by the fact that they did a great stop, although it's a slightly different crew. And the Miller Lite guys go to work on Bobby's car as opposed to the Shell guys. There you can see the fuel goes in to the top of that one, and out comes Rahal.
You can see that what determines the pit stop length is actually getting the fuel in. I mean, everybody's finished changing the tyres and doing any mods or whatever, adjustments to the wing or whatever, and the guy's still putting the fuel in, and that determines the pit stop length. And pretty much there's not much you can do about that. They're stuck with the length of time it takes to put 40 gallons or whatever into the car.
They're not allowed a pressurized system to put that fuel in either, so you just have to wait for it to feed into the fuel tank. And Greg Moore into the pits now as well. So we've got Paul Tracy, no, in fact Scott Pruitt now leading this race, and so he's back up there once again. Paul Tracy is into the pits now for his stop, but Pruitt will still have to make another stop, as will these guys. It really depends on how many more yellow flags we get now, and that's going to be the interesting one. Greg Moore comes back out cleanly. Let's just look further down the list of those people that have been into the pits already. It's looking as though Bobby Rahal made a good quick stop and didn't really lose much ground on any of the others that were around him. De Ferran lost out to Herta, as we know, and Unser Jr., Zanardi, Vassar, they've all basically kept the same position. There is Mark Blundell, and he's coming under pressure to be lapped by the looks of things from Scott Pruitt. In fact, they've slowed right down now, so it looks as though we've got, oh yes, indeed, Walter Salles has gone off. Walter Salles has had a spin in the number 77 car, the Brazilian, the young Brazilian, who's been doing one in qualifying, but he's been doing this a bit too often as well. Getting sort of halfway through the race, difficult to know what happened, maybe involved in traffic or in somebody else's accident. But Walter has had a few of these spins throughout the course of the season so far. Now we are on caution number 7. Yellow flags come out just a moment too late for an awful lot of guys.
Absolutely, I was just looking at the list to see if anybody's lucked in on that one. But I think all the top guys are in.
I think everybody has actually been in for their stop, so I don't think anybody's going to be able to gain particularly out of this one. Walter Salles actually getting out of the car there. Simply's running away with him. Here we are, here's a replay, Robin, let's see what happened. Well, there was smoke pouring out of the car, a fluid leak. So I maligned Walter there because it wasn't his mistake. It was fluid leaking onto the rear tyres that caused him to spin. And you can see, well, in fact, it's fairly obvious. You can see the amount of fluid there as was dropped. Now, that's going to take a little bit of clearing up. Hopefully it was just water out of the radiator in the side pod, although they are putting down cement dust. So it could well have been oil. And that's not going to make life very easy for anyone who might try to go around the outside there. Plenty of cement dust being chucked down, and that's going to cause a fairly long yellow flag, which certainly could assist a certain Scott Pruitt.
Yeah, they've got, what is it, 48 laps to go, and it looks like 40 is the maximum you can go on one stop. So if there's a 7 or 8 lap yellow here, people could take advantage of it. Even the ones who've just done their pit stop could come in again. Yes,
in fact it may, if it's a long enough yellow, it could actually fall back into the hands of the Rahals of this world, couldn't it? The Rahals, the Tracys, and Brian Herta's rather than Scott Pruitt. It's a fascinating tactical battle that nobody knows the outcome until the end of the race, including the guys down in the pits. Pruitt leads here after 87 laps from Bozell, Jourdain, but it'll all change soon. Taking advantage of this yellow flag to make another stop. Now, they're counting on being able to make it through to the end, presumably, here, Robin. But that's going to be fairly tight.
It is. That's, what, 44 laps. Yes, it's very tight. They must suspect that this yellow is going to go on for a couple more laps yet.
It's quite likely. We saw a lot of oil down, a lot of cement dust down.
Right on the limit.
quite possible, but that's an interesting call from Pat Patrick's team. And both cars being brought in at the same time. And the other guys out here, the likes of Rahal, Tracy and Herta, who are our top three at the moment behind the pace car, although you've actually got Andre Ribeiro in there as a lapped car. Rahal, Tracy, Herta, they will also have to make another stop before the end of the race, but they may well decide to come in under the yellow as well. Richie Hearn gets a push start, and that's why we've got this yellow. The car's still there, and as you say, it's likely to take a little while. Look how long that line is, that line of cement dust, right into the apex, or nearly into the apex, right on line anyway, through that corner.
Even though the leaders have got quite a bit of fuel on, I'm sure they're considering coming in now to top up, as they say, which gives them the full fuel load to get to the end of the race. It's right on the limit, but that might be a few laps of yellows, and that might just enable them to do it. And there's bound to be a few more yellows. Well, so bound to be. The odds are there will be a few more yellows anyway.
Just looking again at what happened to Gualter Sales with oil pouring out of it, or whatever it was. It certainly looks blue smoke oil. And then you look as he slides at the great slick being laid underneath the car. Absolutely dreadful. That's really gone bang in a big way. So Sales causing this yellow flag period as Rahal leads Tracy and Herta. Greg Moore in 4th place. Gilles de Ferran 5th. We'll take advantage of the yellow flag to take it on the break and bring you racing when we come back. Welcome back to Rio, but we're also looking ahead, of course, to the next race, the Motorola 300 from Madison. The St. Louis track is a brand new circuit, a brand new oval on the calendar, and that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Live here on Eurosport, we'll be bringing you all the information. We'll be bringing you our preview programs as well, news of qualifying, interviews with the drivers, the full works from the Madison race. It should be an interesting one on a brand new track. But back to the action here. Behind yellow flags, or on a yellow flag behind the pace car, looking at some of the cars out of the race. Fernandez, Carpentier, Franchitti, Arndt Meyer, Paul Jasper, all out of the race after 90 laps. Also Matsushita, Gujamin, Andretti and Walter Sales out of the race. But still a remarkably high number of cars in the race. There's that oil slick that the drivers can have to deal with, and that we've seen enough problems coming out of turn 4 without any oil down. I would dread to think what's going to happen when we get the restart underway here. Brazilian crowd still enjoying this battle, but they have seen their main man fall down the order. Their stop, the de Ferran stop, was not as good on that last round, and he has dropped down to 5th place now. Remember, he was running in 2nd and being pushed by Paul Tracy for many, many laps, but Tracy is now there in 2nd, right behind Bobby Rahal. And then Brian Herta is 3rd. Absolutely brilliant performance from the two Team Rahal cars, 1st and 3rd at the moment, Robin. And this is a big improvement in form to what we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, indeed. I think they've got their car working very well. It's I understand that everybody out there at the races is very happy. They're very happy with the work they've done on the circuit. It's always a nice place to be. Go and play football on the beach. The place actually is called Jacarepaguá, which I believe means the Lake of the Crocodiles. There's a thundering great lake by the side of the circuit, which we always used to steer fairly clear of. There's also a model aircraft flying place nearby, where Ayrton Senna made a beeline for when he, in his Brazilian racing days, was one of his great loves was racing model aircraft.
That's right, and a radio control helicopter as well. I think he used to use in his off moments when he wasn't actually debriefing, which was a fairly rare occurrence when he wasn't debriefing.
Yeah.
So there's de Ferran running around in 5th position now. De Ferran actually is not from Rio. He was born in Paris, in fact, funnily enough, in France, but brought up in Sao Paulo. So he's a very sort of international driver, really. And of course, he spent a lot of time in the UK racing for the Paul Stewart racing team, and won the British Formula 3 Championship with them back in 1992, and then raced for a couple of seasons of Formula 3000 in Europe, again with Paul Stewart Racing. So he's really come from a background of European racing, if you like, but now gone over to the kart championship and doing an excellent job. Had one win last year, one win the previous year in 95 as well, and he's really been a front runner consistently, but a change of team this year from Jim Hall's outfit to Derek Walker. How would you, I mean, Robin, you know, I'm sure you know the two guys extremely well, both Jim Hall and Derek Walker. Would there be a big difference in the way they run the teams?
I'd scarcely think you could get two more different people. I mean, Jim Hall is essentially an engineer, and his innovative years with General, he was really the person who was responsible for putting wings on racing cars with the Chaparral, and he put the ground effect sucker cars with his fan arm and stuff like that. It was brilliant. He really isn't by nature a team manager. Derek Walker is. He works everybody hard, but himself hardest of all, and is not essentially an engineer. He's an out-and-out team manager, and I think it's the best, certainly as good as anybody else.
As you said earlier, he looked after the Penske operation for many years before setting up his own outfit. Ran Robbie Gordon for quite a few years, up until this year. And of course, Robbie moved over from this championship over to the NASCAR series.
Robbie never really seemed totally at ease in this form of racing. And it's interesting that, you know, with the exception of Ray Howell, who learned to race in Europe, that's really where his grounding was. There are still not too many United States drivers come and make it in single-seater racing. Obviously, the Unsers and the Andretti's do. But, you know, we've seen the Canadian drivers, we see the European drivers, we see the Brazilian drivers, but still, there isn't that tradition. They either go and do NASCAR or something else.
Of course, Jimmy Vasser. Jimmy Vasser is one of the American guys who has come up through the ranks. He actually won the Formula Ford Championship, one of the Formula Ford Championships. He also won the Formula Atlantic Series in the States. So he worked his way up, but he had it fairly tough. I suppose another top American youngster that we've got to consider is Brian Herter, who's actually running in third place here and rated very, very highly by quite a few drivers.
Yes.
And in fact, I think it was Barry Green who was quoted as saying to Bobby Rahal, well, you've got the best young American there is out there in your team with Brian Herter. And again, he's come up through the ranks. He did the Barber Saab series, as it was known, very successful in Indy Lights as well, Brian Herter. So definitely a talent for the future, and they're running in third place today.
Yeah, Barry, obviously, he's another one who's gone away from being a mechanic to driving himself in Europe, going over there, becoming a mechanic. They're getting his own team now.
Well, as Brian Herter continues in third, we'll take another break. Rahal still leads.
Live to the PPG Kart World Series with Husqvarna, Forest and Garden Products.
Back at the Rio 400, and Bobby Rahal's doing what he's been doing quite a lot really this afternoon, and that's cruising around slowly because of the yellow flag period we're running under now at number 95 out of 133, and we are getting closer to a restart now. They've cleared up most of the mess, but as you can see, it's still a marshal out on circuit at the moment, and they're waving them around. What they've done is they've swept the circuit where the cement dust was down, trying to clean it up a little bit, and they're just in the finishing stages of that and trying to keep the drivers off that oily line. So hopefully, relatively soon, we should get racing underway. But safety is of paramount importance here, Robin, and they spend a lot of time, a lot of effort cleaning up the circuit as best they can.
Absolutely. There's 38 laps to go, and I'm surprised one of the front runners hasn't taken the risk of doing a pit stop.
As you speak, indeed. The two Ganassi cars come into the pits, and one of the Brahma cars was there as well. I wonder if they're just topping up, or I wonder what they're doing there. Now that was interesting. Did they actually take on fuel there? Not quite sure what was going on there. It was almost as though they just stopped and went again. Quite what that was all about. But the two Ganassi cars are back out once more. They didn't really seem like they did an awful lot. We'll have to see what happens with those two. That's dropped them down the line again, of course, so they're going to have to do a bit of overtaking once they restart. Bobby Rahal will have the attentions of Paul Tracy right behind him, Brian Herter, Greg Moore, Gilles de Ferran in 5th, that's a junior in 6th. Mark Blundell's moved up to 7th as a result of all this, with the two Ganassi cars dropping down the order again. So Mark is 7th, Jourdain 8th, Bozell 9th, and Richie Hearn is in 10th place. And it looks as though it could be fairly soon now. Well, now, interesting, leaders coming in. Brian Herter coming into the pits. He wasn't the only one. There was one or two. I think Al Unser Jr. may have followed him into the pit lane as well. Yes, Unser Jr. into the pits. So, more strategy, more tactics going on here. Bobby Rahal leads round, but Al Unser Jr. into the pit lane, and we're seeing a great build-up now towards the climax of this race.
Yeah, it's 36 laps to go. Provided Little Al gets out before the car comes round, that's very much his advantage.
What a battle. They're so evenly matched here today. We had 17 cars qualify within a second of each other in qualifying. I mean, that just shows you, okay, it's an oval track and it's not that long, 1.8 miles, but nonetheless, 17 cars in a second. It's that sort of closeness that we've seen during the race as well, in that everybody seems to be able to run much the same pace. So it really comes down to positioning yourself on the track through the pit stops, through clever thinking, good work with your engineers back in the pits. And it looks as though we're getting set to go racing once again. Bobby Rahal leads Paul Tracy out of turn 4 for the 98th time to get racing underway once again. Rahal leads. And now we have 35 laps to go. Rahal across the line. Second place for Tracy, Moore in third. And Gilles de Ferran has popped up into fourth place because Jourdain was listed up there, but he's actually dropping down the order again now. And behind de Ferran is Bozell. Now then, can Bobby Rahal maintain the sort of pace that we've seen? Are we going to see Rahal's first victory in 5 years? What a story that would be if Rahal could hold on to this position. But it all depends on what everybody else has done in the pits as well. The likes of Scott Pruitt, for example, who's down in 11th place. And whether Bobby is going to have to stop again for fuel and thereby lose the chance to win. Oh, we've got a yellows again, Robin. A yellow flag again. And we gather it's something to do, it's Jourdain is involved. We heard some report that Moreno might be involved, but it looks like Michel Jourdain, who's actually hit the barrier pretty hard. And a yellow flag again, I can't believe it. It just seems to be one of those days where the yellows keep on flying. Yesterday, we had a NASCAR race that had no yellow flags in it at all for 500 miles. And today, I think the IndyCar boys are trying to make up for that, because we're now into yet another yellow period, and there's a bit more clearing up to do. These safety guys really have had a half afternoon's work. Michel Jourdain's all right, though. Young Mexican driver who earned this drive really out of a test, and they tested several drivers, and he's really quite impressive. I was talking to his race engineer just last week, and he's driving a Lola chassis looked after by Mike Wright, and he was saying that Michel is actually a really good driver. He's very impressed by him, but they've had very little chance to do a lot of testing. They've had an inordinate number of engine problems for some reason, which really has limited the amount of development testing they've been able to do. Every time they go out, they seem to have some niggly little problem, and they haven't been able to develop this car as they would like to. But he really rates Michel Jourdain, and thinks he's got a good future. Moreno was involved by the looks of it, because he's come into the pits and is finally out of the race. So let's have a look, see if we can find out what happened. Jourdain lost it. He was up with the leaders, remember. Now, did Moreno get tangled up in some of the debris, or was that totally separate? That may have been something completely different. That was the accident to Michel Jourdain. So there's the leaders back out, and Jourdain's car being cleared up. Just talking about Jourdain being in the Lola car, Robin. Of course, Lola are going through a difficult time, it has to be said, at the moment.
Yeah, all manufacturers, as I know well, have your ups and your downs, and Lola's are having a big down at the moment. But they're good people, and we all hope they'll be back.
Let's hope so, yes. It's not a good time for them. They've sold very few Indy cars this year, and the car hasn't proved to be as competitive as they would like. It's ironic when you think Michael Andretti did so well with the Lola last year. He had 5 wins last year.
It was interesting. I was talking to Mark Mosler this week. He was a Reynard designer. He admitted last year probably the Lola was overall the best car. But they took on a lot and maybe went the wrong way in a few things strategically. And it's created problems. And we've said on that you like to beat your adversaries, but you don't want to beat them in this way. And I know Reynard and Swift Penske would say exactly the same.
Now you've been through all this yourself with March, haven't you? I mean, a great success, and then of course the things can just change overnight, can't they?
Very quickly. I mean, it was to do with my giving it in, but I gave it in at the end of '86, and we'd won 22 of the previous 24 races. 5 on the way to 5 Indies on the trot. Nothing to do with my sort of giving it in and doing F1, but we just then went plummeted. And it can happen, as you say, pretty much overnight.
Well, the car's still touring around behind the pace car at the moment, and Bobby Rahal now got just 32 laps to complete once the green flag flies once again, and to try and hold on for this victory. It would be a great story if he does. Absolutely fantastic. The 3 times winner of the championship, but it's not all going to be his own way. There's still some other guys who've made pit stops. Here's one, for example,
and
Scott
Roberto,
Pruitt.
I know that the fans
really
appreciate your efforts, but what happened? It sounded like an engine-related problem.
What made us stop now? We have a misfire. Until we try to fix it, it might be a long time. So with the tube accident, one that I believe was Tracy that hit the back of my wheel and made me spin. We recovered from there quite well. We're looking good. I was trying to overtake Gugelmin, and then a crazy guy went on the outside of Mauricio somehow, and Mauricio starts a spin and hit my front wheel, and I had to go into a spin and went backwards into the tire wall. The team, the Kmart Budweiser team, did a fantastic job to change the wing, got me back there. Even with a bent steering arm, the car felt really good, and I was putting down some good times and catching the guys in front and made some great passing. But with a couple laps down and a misfire, so we decided to pack it and go home and wait for the next one.
Well, Roberto Moreno is going to go join his fans now. We'll go down and join Marty Reid.
Yes, and we've caught up with Michel Jourdain. I know you're disappointed. Take us through what happened.
I'm very sorry for the team. I mean, they did a great job. The strategy was very good. We were in 5th place, I think, and I think we could make it until the race, until the end of the race with the fuel. But the brakes were going down and down and down and down, and I just arrived to 4 and there was no brakes. I thought I was going to run over Gilles de Ferran, and I mean, it was like the 5th time I thought I was going out, and I was trying to take care on them. But I'm sorry for the whole RDS Club Mexico, because they did a great job, and I hope we have a better race in St. Louis.
Hey, the one positive is you're okay, and you get them in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
So there, the view of Michel Jourdain, the young Mexican, who, as I said, promising driver, but obviously at the moment still learning the art of driving Indy cars. And if you've got a soft brake pedal, it can't help very much in this sort of situation.
Especially when you're braking from 200 miles an hour down to 100 miles an hour.
Yes.
He's a good guy. It'd be nice to see the Mexicans in, because then you've got Canadians, United States people, Mexicans, Brazilians. I'm sure we'll see some Argentinians in before long.
That's right, yes, coming up through the ranks. Of course, we've got another Mexican in Adrian Fernandez in the championship as well. So it's got a fair bit of interest in Mexico. They love it down there as well. And it's good to spread its wings a little bit. Now then, Bobby's bunching them all up a bit here, isn't he? Just getting them all nice and close together. And the master tactician, he's almost the professor type of IndyCar, isn't he?
He's a canny old bird. It's going to be interesting to see what he's... I hope they show us taking around, but he try and get a flyer to get a jump on the others, just to see how he tries and does it. So he accelerated away then.
Well, can Rahal hold on to take the victory here? We should find out whether Rahal can do it soon. Paul Tracy behind. Rahal just, look at this, just playing with the accelerating and backing off, trying to stretch out the advantage when they come round to take the green flag once again. 44 years old he might be, but there are no flies on him, and he's determined to stay away from Paul Tracy on this restart.
It's rather like those cycle races, where they sort of just go at about half a mile and a half and most of it, then get that tactical jump, and that's what he'll try and do. He will try to accelerate when they're not expecting it. You actually get super well then.
Yeah, he's done all right, but Tracy's read it. Tracy has stayed with him, and he's read that one really well. Out of turn 4, Tracy's had a great run. It's an opportunity here, surely, for Paul Tracy to have a go into turn 1. But is he close enough? Is he got the straight line speed? He just can't seem to get it. And it looks as though, not quite do it. It looks as though the Penske's are basically running a bit too much downforce, because he just can't seem to get the speed at the end of the straight to actually dive past anybody. He couldn't do it before with Gilles de Ferran, and he can't do it now with Bobby Rahal. And maybe some of these other teams have sort of gone for a rather low drag setup to make sure they're quick on the straights, and Paul Tracy just can't take advantage of his speed through the corners enough to make up for it. Quick there, you see, into the top corner, but then as they get down to the end of this straight, let's see again. Does Rahal pull away, or can Tracy this time tuck in? Not quite. Again, the gap opens up, and the gap opens up even more to third position. Greg Moore in third place, with de Ferran in fourth, Bazell in fifth. Zanardi's popped up to sixth position now, ahead of Jimmy Vasser seventh. Richie Hearn is eighth. It's a good run from Richie Hearn, another Lola-mounted driver. And ninth place for Scott Pruitt, 10th place for PJ Jones at the moment. Mark Blundell running in 12th position. But he's just behind Herter as well. Remember, Brian Herter made an extra stop, as did Alonso Jr., who's down in 13th position. Well, whether that proves to be the right thing to do or not, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Well, I think Junior and Pruitt are in a very good situation. I mean, most of these guys have got to stop again. Those two don't have to. And with that prolonged yellow just now, it's made both Junior and Pruitt safe. They don't need to come in again.
Well, on the other hand, if there's another yellow, then of course that could change things around completely again. Across.
But they'll be up at the front, so they'll be 1 and 2, I imagine.
That's right, yeah. So everyone else will be behind them in the queue.
Exactly.
Greg Moore fending off Gilles de Ferran at the moment without too much difficulty. You on board with Gilles de Ferran, and chasing after the Canadian. These two battled last year a little bit at one point during the race. And Moore, who came up to lead much of the race until just a little way to go, 18 laps to go there were, when he was cruelly robbed with a silly little electrical problem, but that's often the case. It only takes one little wire breaking down to rob you of the chance for a win, and that's what happened to Greg Moore last year. Richie Hearn very close to the wall at the back of that particular group, as Rahal continues to lead the way ahead of Paul Tracy. And it's looking harder and harder for anybody to match Rahal or to actually get past him. They can hold him, but they can't seem to get past him.
I was interested in what you said. You're absolutely right. I mean, Tracy comes out right on his tail. But we've seen several in-car shots where people have been able to draft. That means to slipstream and actually catch people, as we've seen there with, behind Greg Moore. But the Penske's don't seem to be able to do that. It may be that they've just got that bit too much downforce. It may be that Rahal's coming out of the corner a little bit quicker. I don't know.
Yeah, it certainly seems as though he's struggling to really make that move, that to get alongside Rahal as we go back on board with Gilles de Ferran.
But certainly Little Al and Tracy, the two Penske cars are working extremely well. Well done, Paul.
Further back, Alex Zanardi and Jimmy Vasser. Zanardi now running in 5th position, having moved up a little bit. So it's been a good afternoon's work so far for Zanardi. He's not been in one of his dramatic, faster than anybody else modes today quite. They haven't quite had the setup of the car to be able to do that. But he's done well. Remember, he started right at the back of the field, and now he's up there in 5th place, and Jimmy Vasser is in 7th place. So still an excellent effort. So Rahal, Tracy, Moore, then de Ferran as they flash past once again. 109 laps completed now. Just 24 laps still to go. And can Rahal hold off Paul Tracy to the end? Now watch Scott Pruitt. Pruitt's on a bit of a move here, trying to find a way past Jimmy Vasser by the looks of things. It's the battle for 7th place, and Pruitt looking good. And as we know, in terms of strategy, he's in good shape as well. There he is in 8th place, but he's very quick. Ford power here versus Honda power, remember? Both of them on Firestones, both in Reynard chassis, and through goes Scott Pruitt even before they got to the second kink.
Yeah, that was a telltale. If the Penske chassis could do that, they'd be long gone.
Yes, but it doesn't seem to work for them. But Pruitt is definitely racing well here. And that's popped him up into 7th place now, behind teammate Raul Boesel. You see the two Brahma cars running almost in tandem now. Raul Boesel had a little bit of a disappointing qualifying session, but another Brazilian who's still up there. De Ferran is still top Brazilian at the moment, keeping the fans happy, just off to podium position. He's in 4th place, and Raul Boesel in 6th place, but watch out for number 20, Scott Pruitt. Winner of the Surfers Paradise race this year, 2nd in the championship coming into this race, but he's already seen Michael Andretti retire, and even if Scott finishes where he is now, then he's heading to lead the championship once again. So Scott Pruitt has to bear that in mind. He doesn't want to make any rash moves, but he's obviously got a car that's working extremely well. Remember, Paul Tracy, 3rd place in the championship coming into this race, only 2 points behind Pruitt. So if Tracy stays where he is in 2nd place, then in fact Tracy would go to the head of the table, and Pruitt would be in 2nd place. Zanardi wouldn't be too far behind either, and it would be Michael Andretti losing out the most. We'll have to wait and see how things settle down towards the end of the race. But for Tracy, perhaps he will be more keen on scoring the points for 2nd position and taking the championship lead than he will be in a risky manoeuvre to get past Bobby Rahal.
I think we're, what, 7 or 8 laps, maybe slightly less from the final pit stop for everybody. And after that, you know, we're going to see what the race is down to the wire. But looking at it logically, you'd say it's going to be Little Al and Pruitt. We shall see.
We shall see, yes, what turns out. There goes Rahal, Tracy, Moore, De Ferran. Still, the positions hold the same. Behind them, Zanardi in 5th place. Everybody perhaps building themselves up to the final effort, the last charge. Nobody seems to have got into too much trouble on the oil that was laid there when Gualtasala's car blew up. There you see Greg Moore started 8th, now in 3rd place. Fastest lap, 166 miles per hour. And then in the background you can see the two Brahma cars, the yellow and red cars, have closed up to one another once again. Boesel coming under increasing pressure from Scott Pruitt. There they go, flashing past the camera. Gilles de Ferran still not able to close up that gap anymore to Greg Moore ahead of him. The 21-year-old Canadian who's very much worked his way up through the ranks in Canadian and American motorsport. That Indy Lights championship that he took in 1995, and a remarkable performance, 10 victories he took throughout the course of that season.
It's interesting for me because we finished our football season a week ago today, and sort of in relaxed mode, at 3 months of relative peace anyway. And these guys just starting out on the season. It's strange in the juxtaposition of the 2 seasons.
The different sports, the different seasons, but it's still very early days in this championship, Robin. There's no doubt about that. Too early to call who's going to come out on the top of the table in the PPG Kart Series, but Andretti has been looking good this year. But Scott Pruitt, as we've seen here, there he is on board with him, a consistent finisher, and that's really what it's all about, isn't it? You've got to keep finishing consistently.
Yep. Yeah, you know, with you know, Vass's record, I mean, this is going to be his 26th. I don't want to put the kiss of death on it, but I mean, it's going to be his 26th consecutive finish, and he finishes up there in the points. As you said, people criticize him. They say, well, he finishes without undue speed. But you've seen the sort of accidents that people get into, and he's got the wit to avoid them. And sort of, he obviously can anticipate, you know, when someone's going to do a pretty stupid or over-aggressive maneuver and get out of the way, which 1 or 2 drivers notoriously can't.
That's right, that's right. Well, Scott Pruitt, a similar case. He had a bit of a disappointing run in Nazareth last race out. Scott was only in 10th position at the end of it, but again scored some points there. Had that win in Surfers Paradise, remember. He was 3rd in Long Beach as well, 5th in Homestead. And Pruitt, who's only had 2 kart wins in his career, one of those coming this year, but lying 2nd in the championship. He finished 3rd here last year, so he obviously likes this track, goes well on this circuit, and well, just keep an eye on him throughout the rest of the race. Back at the Rio 400, and the situation remains the same. Bobby Rahal still leads from Paul Tracy, with Greg Moore 3rd, Gilles de Ferran 4th, Alex Zanardi in 5th place, Raul Boesel 6th, then Scott Pruitt in 7th. Brian Herta is 8th, Jimmy Vasser 9th, and Mark Blundell in 10th place. Last 2-point scorers at the moment are Ala Unser Jr. and Richie Hearn. There are just 10 laps to go, and the front runners are going to try and eke it out to the flag. They're going to try and make it on the fuel, but it's going to be very, very tight indeed to see whether they can make it under green flag conditions. They'll be crossing just about everything there is in the pit lane at the moment, because Rahal and Tracy do not want to have to come into the pits to make a stop, but it is going to be close.
Yeah, it sure is. And by our calculations, they're running on air, or very nearly air. Whilst you were in the commercial, we saw some shots of Tracy coming up behind Rahal, and I know you're braking from 200 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour, so your time gap means that keep that the same, you halve the distance. But Tracy was all over Rahal. They just couldn't take him out of the straight. But it was very interesting. Towards the end of the straight, Tracy would pull out as if to get some more cooling or something like that in the engine.
Well, doesn't seem to be working his way any closer to Rahal. Rahal has just dominated here this afternoon so far, and with just something like 8 laps to go, it looks as though he's going to be able to hold on to take victory here. What a fantastic achievement if he can do so. But let's not count the chickens too soon, because there's still a few laps to go. The fuel is marginal, to say the least, and Rahal and Tracy are hoping to make it through. Moore in 3rd place, and then De Ferran in 4th position. It's been a remarkably calm race really in the latter stages. The first part of the race opened up with numerous yellow flags, incidents, spins, crashes of all sorts, but this latter part of the race has really settled down into a rhythm. But Bobby Rahal has dictated the rhythm ahead of Tracy and the others, and just controlled the race. Absolutely superb performance so far.
There are 2 or 3 tricks you can do to conserve fuel in these sort of situations. One is obviously drive the car very carefully and smoothly. There you see the Penske all over Rahal. One is drive it smoothly. Second is you can actually adjust the mixture. You can lean it off. That loses your power and tends to make the engine run hot, which maybe is what we're seeing a little bit from Tracy. And the third one is do what is called short shifting, which means you don't use the full power of the engine. Instead of you change gear 1,000 revs below its maximum, that actually conserves fuel.
And these slower corners as well, they have a little bit of option of taking them in either 3rd or 4th, so a similar thing there, perhaps just running it in 4th gear just here, for example. Maybe that's why Rahal's a little slow in, although then he wouldn't have the acceleration out either, so seems a little difficult to explain exactly how Rahal's managing to stay ahead so well of Paul Tracy, but the car just seems to be letting him do that. Absolutely brilliantly set up, and the whole team have done a superb job. We saw Brian Herta running well earlier, but he made a different pit stop, and he lies down in 8th position now. So he was slightly out of sequence with the others earlier on in the race, and that's dropped him down. But still an excellent performance from the team. With just a few laps to go, Bobby Rahal looking set to take victory here. If he can just hold on to it all, and if Paul Tracy can't find that little extra bit of gap that he's been looking for just about the whole race long. Rahal finished 6th here last year. Best result of this year so far was indeed last time out at Nazareth when he finished in 6th place. But this would be quite some achievement to take the victory. As I mentioned, first time in 5 years for him. And he was last champion in 1992. He didn't run on this Rio track then. And it's only the 2nd year it's been run, but I should think Bobby will be doing a bit more than dancing the samba tonight if he manages to take the victory here.
Be very interested to talk to both of these two after the race. I think they've got a lot to say, and not in a bad way. And they're both driven magnificently. And all credit to Tracy, being slightly eccentric at the start, but he's driven very well, very smoothly, very quickly since.
Kept the car together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just 3 laps to go now for Bobby Rahal. Can he hold off the Canadian that little bit longer? It's often forgotten that Bobby actually did a little bit of Formula 1, drove a couple of Grand Prix for the Wolf team at Watkins Glen and Montreal back in 1978. Did a lot of Can-Am racing as well, but of sports cars. He won the Daytona 24-hour race many moons ago. Made his IndyCar debut back in 1982. And then the first of his 3 championships came in 1986. Second title was the following year. 87. Then there was a bit of a lean spell until that 1992 championship winning season that saw him take 4 victories. Look at the pit crew there. They are nervous, and somebody's run out of fuel. It's happened, Robin, just as you said. It's Gilles de Ferran who's run out of fuel. But are the others going to make it? Are they going to get round on the fuel they've been allowed? Gilles de Ferran, the calculation doesn't work for him. Is it going to work for Rahal? Is it going to work for Paul Tracy? They're so close now. Take the white flag. Well, Rahal slowed down, has he? I think he slowed down a little bit more even than usual. And Paul Tracy's coming round. Paul Tracy's taking the lead. Bobby Rahal is running out of fuel. The calculations didn't work. Oh no, Bobby Rahal goes on to the last lap. It's Paul Tracy who takes the lead. But can the Penske make it round the final 1.8 miles on their fuel calculation? Bobby Rahal, do you believe it? He came so close to winning for the first time in such a long time. But it's Paul Tracy, the winner of the last race at Nazareth, who lies 3rd in the championship coming into this race. He has managed to eke out the fuel in the slipstream of Bobby Rahal, and he is going to come round to take victory here in Rio. He cruises out of the final corner, and Paul Tracy wins for Penske, wins for Mercedes, and takes his 2nd victory in a row. Amazing.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Maybe that's what he was doing. You know, we saw him quite a lot of the time when you were in a commercial, pulling out towards the end of the straight, which you only do to get cooling. He was running very lean, short shifting it, not using the revs down the straights, and he ran Rahal out of fuel.
Well, there's the story then, after a race that really settled down and was quiet for such a long time. The last 2 laps, Gilles de Ferran still racing at the moment. Look, Gilles de Ferran still racing because he's been in the pits and come back out, so he's desperate to get round. He was 11th last time as they came round. Tracy the winner from Greg Moore, Scott Pruitt, Alex Zanardi 4th. Good effort from Zanardi. Bazell 5th, Herta 6th, Unser 7th, then Blundell in 8th, he's got points. Vassar 9th, Rahal 10th. No, dropping down even further, de Ferran takes 10th.
Spin and win. Tell us first about the spin.
Well, we didn't know the green was coming. I didn't know it was coming, and the tires were cold. Usually try to warm them up on that last lap, and it just caught me out. I jumped on the throttle. I was in 6th gear, and I clicked it down to 2nd and jumped on the throttle and just snapped out on me. So, hey, we came back. Pit stop guys did great job, and Mercedes-Benz got us the fuel mileage that we need to get at the end, and Goodyear tires got us up there. I knew I had to pressure Bobby because he pitted before me. I knew we were light on fuel, and so I knew he'd be worse than I was, and I just tried to push him as quick as we could go, and he ran out of fuel.
Did you think you were going to run out there at the end?
No, I knew we had enough. I knew we had just enough, and because of what we did early on, when I got behind those guys, I saved fuel, and we got a full tank of fuel on our stop, so I knew I had enough fuel. It was going to be marginal if there wasn't that last yellow, but I knew Bobby had pitted before me, and I knew that, you know, I had to push him hard to make him run out of fuel.
Paul Tracy and Team Penske, they're on a roll. Let's go to Marty Reed.
Yeah, Jan, normally we don't talk to 10th place, but this one deserves it. I gotta tell you, what drama. How'd you feel?
Oh, I don't know how I feel right now. I mean, the car was so good in the race, and you know, we had a little fuel pressure problem, but the engine ran beautifully. I mean, the car was just hooked up, and it was just fun to drive, but everybody was marginal, and we were trying to short shift and do everything we could, and you know, it showed a little bit of fuel left in the tank, but it died coming out of 4, and that was that. I think we had to go for it, because if we'd come in and stopped for fuel, we would have ended up probably right where we are anyway. So I'm just sorry for my guys, because the car was awesome, and I think we led just about all the laps, and I mean, we didn't lead the right one, unfortunately, but you know, I think we showed that we're back, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you feel like going in 2 weeks from now that this team's ready to put it across?
This team, you know, we didn't get off a good start in Miami, but since that time, this team has really come together, and I'm really proud of these guys. And you know, it's just, I was praying, but I didn't pray hard enough, I guess.
Well, Bobby won the Rio 398. Unfortunately, it's the Rio 400.
Absolutely. What you can see his crew member there, Robin, just gutted, I think is the word. Absolutely gutted as Bobby Rahal lost out, and Paul Tracy takes the win. Which saw Paul Tracy snatch the victory from Bobby Rahal, and there you can see the results. Tracy the winner from Greg Moore. It's Canadian 1-2 here in Brazil. Brazilian contingent really didn't have it their way. Raul Boesel was top Brazilian there in 5th position, as you can see. Alex Zanardi had another good run, though, to finish 4th. Alonso Jr. 7th, Marc Blondel 8th, ahead of Jimmy Vasser, Gilles de Ferran. Bobby Rahal 11th in the end, after running out of fuel, after leading virtually the entire race distance. And what a disappointment for him, as we saw just before the break. Parker Johnston finished in 12th place, and therefore the last points scorer. But what that all means is that Paul Tracy has taken over the lead in the championship table, because, of course, Michael Andretti, the former championship leader, was one of the earlier retirements. Let's go and down to the pit lane. Just waiting for Alex Zanardi. Oh no, we've got Greg Moore instead.
Greg Moore is up on the podium as well with a 2nd place finish. We didn't see you too much today, but you stayed out of trouble. You had enough fuel and just gradually worked your way to the front.
Yeah, that was just it. I mean, we were running real strong at the beginning of the race, and I think that today the Goodyears had a little bit more grip than the Firestones. You know, we were good for real long laps, but you know, everyone in the Players team did a great job. I mean, we were down for the last couple races, but we're back now, and I'm really looking forward to St. Louis now.
How much confidence and how similar will the setups be?
I don't think they'll be quite any similar to here, but I think we can go there more or less what we ran at Nazareth. You know, Paul and those guys in the Penske team will be awfully tough, but you know, I think the Players car will be real tough too.
Would you like to see more ovals like this, where you have a lot of braking and downshifting?
I really enjoy this track. I mean, as I'm sure everyone on TV saw, it was just a great race. I mean, a lot of passing, you know, real close running, and it was a lot of fun to drive today.
Congratulations, Greg.
Thank you.
So Greg Moore, who's now moved up into 5th place in the championship with that 2nd place finish today. He was lying in 7th.
Already finished 4th last year on the pole. This one was a struggle, though, from 26. It was fun to watch, but what were you thinking about there at the end?
Well, this was more or less the kind of position I was hoping to get last night, so right on target. But obviously it was a bit disappointed with what happened with the Ferrari, because he ran out of gas right in the middle of the corner, and that was very, very unfortunate. I had to brake hard, and Pruitt got me simply because he was coming from behind, and he ran a very good momentum through the corner and got both of us. I believe we could have got easily a 2nd place today, because Greg Moore was also in big troubles with the gas right at the end of the race, so I would have got it too.
So Alex Zanardi there, a little disappointed, but there you have to say, did a good job from the back of the field there. Zanardi in 3rd place in the championship now, but some 10 points behind Tracy. To the podium, and their confirmation of his lead in the championship now. Scott Pruitt in 2nd place, Alex Zanardi in 3rd place, Michael Andretti drops to 4th, and Greg Moore has moved up to 5th position. But Paul Tracy, the winner today, winner of Nazareth 2 in a row after such a lean spell for the Penske team. They really are back on the map. Scott Pruitt in 3rd place, scoring once again, and don't forget Greg Moore. Canadians have really done well here today with a 1-2 finish for Paul Tracy and Greg Moore. But disappointment, of course, for Bobby Rahal. Rahal, who ended up finishing down in 11th place after running out of fuel. Well, Robin, we knew that they were marginal on fuel. That was always going to be the case, but it must hurt just as much for Bobby to lose in that last fraction of the race.
Boy, his car was working well in those corners today, and he was fast in the straight as well. It seemed he had a very good balance in the corners and was running relatively low downforce and therefore low drag, so he was quick in the straight. But Tracy did very well. I mean, if it had been a fight to the finish, I think Tracy had a pretty good idea of what was going on. I still wouldn't have put it out of possibility that Tracy would have beat him anyway.
There's 12 wins in his career now for Paul Tracy. That's another one added to the tally in 83 races. And as we saw, he's moved up into the lead of the championship table now. 2nd place in the first race in Homestead. Had that crash. Just think what would have happened if he hadn't had the crash with Zanardi in Surfers Paradise when they were battling for the lead there. Didn't have such a good run in Long Beach, finished down in 7th place, but the win at Nazareth and now the win here in Rio really makes Paul Tracy one of the major favourites for this year's championship. But Michael Andretti, Scott Pruitt and Alex Zanardi, amongst others, will have plenty to say about that for the rest of the year. Just going through the rest of the results here today. Andretti, a non-finisher, down in 21st. Guterman, another disappointing non-finisher after running very competitively throughout the race. Dario Franchitti last one on the list because he was taken out right at the beginning of the race, remember, in that start incident. Well, Robin, thank you very much for joining me for this Rio race. It's been a delight to have you along. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Pleasure. It's nice having a little bit of motor racing again after 3 years of football.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our coverage here on Eurosport, and don't forget that we'll be bringing you the next race from St. Louis in 2 weeks' time. We'll be there. I hope you can join us then. From Ben Edwards and Robin Hurd, bye-bye.